بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome all viewers and listeners to yet another episode of Tibyan podcast, which is a project dedicated to helping examine with knowledge contemporary affairs happening in the Muslim communities. Likewise, we tackle topics such as studying in Saudi Arabia, benefiting from some of the most prominent Islamic scholars of today, how to apply to different Islamic universities, juggling marital life with studies, self-improvement, education, books, and much more. We have a new weekly upload every Monday at 9 p.m. KSA time, 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to send us your questions and topics, as you guys already have been doing. Today, alhamdulillah, we're honored to have a good guest who came already from Atlanta, the Amir Hafidhullah Ta'ala, formerly known as Loon. Hayakallah akhi. Kayf al-hal?
Alhamdulillah.
How you feeling, man? How was the trip?
Man, words can't explain. It's like, we've been talking a lot about, putting forth this kind of effort, and just to see y'all brothers doing it, it's just
Alhamdulillah.
speechless. Akhi.
It's good to have you here, man. It's good to have you on the pod.
I'm honored.
Yeah, it's our honor. Alhamdulillah. How was the travel, though? How was the trip?
That was good. I mean, this the anxiety of returning back to Saudi Arabia after, over 10 years.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know. When I went to prison, I actually just made Hajj.
SubhanAllah.
I had just made Hajj, stopped in Egypt, gave the gifts to my family, got back on a plane to give a speech at a university in Belgium, and I just got back like 2 years ago.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, SubhanAllah.
So this is your first time out the States in how many years? Like 10?
Yeah, since 2011.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, I think you got incarcerated on your way back from Hajj.
Oh yeah, on my way back.
So it was like one of the last places you were before.
Wow. That's why I'm lost for words, because it's still surreal for me, because it's like the last stamp I received on my passport was Saudi Arabia.
Allah.
And then I got a new passport, and the first stamp Saudi Arabia. Allah is most kind, to invite me to his house once again.
Well, ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. It's good to have you. Alhamdulillah. And before we get into it, because I have a list of questions that I think that would be beneficial for the listener and the viewer, especially people seeking knowledge. And, our podcast is dedicated to helping people in seeking knowledge and, being connected to the scholars, etc. And I think your story ties in perfectly with that. But before we get started, obviously, we like to talk about relative affairs that's happening in this past week. At the time of this recording, our Sheikh Ubaid, rahimahullah ta'ala, he passed away just 2 days ago. So we wanted to make sure we make our dua for the Sheikh and remind the viewers and the listeners to also make the dua for the Sheikh, and condolences to the family. And it's a sad event, Allah musta'an. To see it. Wallah.
No, definitely something that the reason we mentioned this is for that sole reason.
Yeah.
Make dua for the Sheikh. If the Sheikh has benefited you, and definitely he has.
Yeah.
Directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
What you can do for him today is make dua for him. He's in need of you today.
100%.
You benefited from him. The Ummah benefited from him. But today, right now, there's nothing that he can do. His actions have come to an end.
Exactly.
So don't overlook that, my dear brothers and sisters. Make dua for him. Don't forget him in your du'as. And all of the scholars of the Sunnah, and even those that are sick as well right now. Shaykh Ibrahim Muhyiddin, we heard yesterday, entered ICU as well. Hafidhahullah. So it's the death of scholars. That itself is subhanallah, it's a topic that
it's a crazy affair that's taking place right now. I mean, how many years have we seen scholars pass away, getting sick? I mean, it's something that should cause some type of worry.
No.
And we should start contemplating over our situations.
Definitely,
100%.
definitely. And then those that are even alive today, alhamdulillah, many of them are sick. Many of them stopped teaching. So until when are you going to postpone seeking knowledge from the scholars? Until when are you going to say tomorrow? I'll learn Arabic. I'll go Egypt next year. La wallah, you don't have that chance. If this is not an ibrah, this is not a wake-up call, that this is an opportunity that if you don't take it right now, you're going to lose it, then I don't know what's going to be. Allah musta'an.
Yeah, subhanallah. Did you have a chance to meet Sheikh Ubaid when you was here?
No, I never had a chance to meet the Sheikh. Actually, when I made Hajj, I was supposed to meet the Sheikh.
Yeah,
I was supposed to meet the Sheikh. I didn't get the opportunity. So, definitely one of those people that benefited from Sheikh Ubaid.
Alhamdulillah.
And, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make his grave spacious.
Ameen.
And grant him Jannah for those.
Ameen. Yeah, I personally, when I first came, I didn't get an opportunity to benefit from the Sheikh directly. I think a lot of his lessons were stopped at the time when I first came as a student in Jamia Islamiyah. However, like you said, some people have benefited from directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of my earlier teachers, they benefited from him directly. And for that, you got to be thankful, because when you're first coming in, especially as a new Muslim, it can be very confusing.
No.
You come in, you don't know who to listen to, you don't know who to turn to, but sometimes you have these communities, these different institutes who help connect you to the scholars, and that's something you got to be thankful for, despite whatever may take place.
I mean, for me, I've obviously, having only lived in Riyadh, never lived in Medina, but I do remember my very first Umrah trip, which was 2005. I think I was 16 or something. But then we met the Sheikh, alhamdulillah, after Salah. One of the brothers arranged for the Sheikh on his way from the masjid to the house. We met him, alhamdulillah. That was the first time I met him. But even before that, the Sheikh used to do regular telelinks to our local masjid in Birmingham. So alhamdulillah.
Allah yarhamuhu.
Now it's funny he mentioned that his first Umrah, because I remember my first Umrah, and first scholar I ever met, Hafidullah, was Sheikh Abdul Razak al-Abad.
MashaAllah.
So yeah, is amazing, as you mentioned, and this is something that I'm consistently grateful about, is that coming to Islam, I never sat with people who called to other than the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Sheikh Ubaid, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was one of those scholars that many of the brothers in the West frequently turn to. And sitting with the brothers, you get so familiar with the likes of Sheikh Rabia, Sheikh Ubaid, and alhamdulillah, it was like these I benefited from afar.
I
never had a chance to sit with the Sheikh, but definitely many times where brothers were at a crossroad or maybe in disagreements of certain matters,
they would take the affair back to
they would definitely take the affair back to Sheikh Ubaid.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And that's what the scholars are for, generally speaking. We should be taking our affairs back to the scholars. If we differ in something, take them back to the scholars. So alhamdulillah.
Well, one thing that Sheikh Ubaid, mashallah, was really known for, other than obviously his defense of the Sunnah, everybody knows that. But Sheikh Salman Ruhaili tweeted yesterday, the way when he teaches, he does taqsimat.
Yeah, that's true.
Every time he mentions a mas'ala, ثلاثة أقسام.
Make sure you translate taqsimat, huh?
Yeah, so he basically puts everything into categories now. Yeah. So if he mentions something, it's very organized, as in this is 4 categories, and mentions 1, 2, 3, 4. The next. So he was, mashallah, very much known for this type of teaching, which helps and aids in remembering the
definitely. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy on Sheikh Ubaid and all of our ulama from Ahl Sunnah who passed away, and forgive him his sins and his shortcomings. With that being said, let's jump into it. So the first question I have for you is, I wanted you to tell us, because me and you, when we first met, it was 2011, I believe, right?
No,
in Egypt. And when we first met, automatically you were in Egypt and you're seeking knowledge.
Yes.
So tell me about that experience when you first became Muslim to getting to Egypt. How did you end up in Egypt?
Kind of a long story, but I'll give you the short version. When I initially, actually the brother Mutar, Hafidullah, man, he was the first to kind of drag me into, speaking. Because even then, when I first became Muslim, I really didn't want to be in front of the people. Because I had just had an extensive career, in the music business, constantly being in front of the people. So it was probably easier for me during that time because I was versed in understanding what it is I was doing. As far as in the music business. But to be in front of the people and not be knowledgeable or aware of, what it entails to be Muslim first and foremost. And then to propel yourself in front of the people, I looked at that as something that, should be definitely a concern. So once I started, doing these speaking engagements, I started to realize that, a lot of the youth were inclined to listening to me speak. And at the time, my talks was just limited to, my reversion to Islam. So I would not exceed that in no way, shape, or form. Because either I'm talking about becoming Muslim or I'm not talking at all, right? So
you already knew your limits.
Yeah, I knew my limits, and alhamdulillah, this also came from seeking the advice of the people of knowledge to actually understand with clarity what my limitations were. Because in your heart, when you're a new Muslim, you have all this zeal. And you try to connect certain things with your emotions instead of with Dalil.
Yeah.
No.
You know, and I was fearful of that. So, you know, during the Q&As, because you know the traditional style of doing Q&A is like the questions would come up.
Yeah.
You know, they would come up in the form of letters or, you know, paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sitting there opening these joints up. And
Yeah.
it's like, it was just all kinds of weird questions. Like, oh, is Puff Daddy Somali? I'm like, oh, no. It was all kinds of stuff. Sometimes it'd be, mashallah, brother, you trying to get married? I'm like, oh, nah. So, you know, these were the things that, you know, prompt me to understand the validity or the severity of the responsibility that comes with sitting in front of the people.
Allah
You understand?
No.
So now,
But is he though? Sorry.
huh?
It's Puff Daddy Somali.
Nah, but you know it's crazy. You know, it tickled me the first time because you know I used to frequent a lot of Somali communities.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Alhamdulillah,
Yeah.
the Somalis were very big. You know, and inviting me at first when I became Muslim, and he hosted me in such a, you know, memorable manner.
Mashallah.
But the problem was when fiqh questions started coming. You know what I'm saying? And
About
then-
religious rulings.
Yeah.
No.
People started asking me fiqh questions. And it's like,
SubhanAllah.
and it was like, Sheikh Amir. And I'm like, Sheikh Amir, I just took Shahada. You know, so I understood that the inclination was extremely strong.
Yeah.
And like I said, being in the music business, you know, Qabla Islam, I understood that there's a responsibility.
Yeah.
You know,
You have a platform. You have a voice.
platform.
Yeah.
You have a voice.
Influence.
You have influence, and you have all these things working in your favor,
Mhm.
and it could either contribute to something, you know what I'm saying, at the time, you know, I thought beneficial, or it could contribute to something that could be a detriment.
Mhm.
So now at these speaking engagements, I started to learn
Yeah.
it's the same circumstance.
Mm.
It's just different platform, different purpose,
Mhm.
you know, different reasoning.
Yeah.
And all of these things have to be assessed and taken extremely serious.
Mm.
So I knew immediately I needed to go.
Seek some knowledge.
I needed to go learn my religion
Allah Akbar.
because that was because that was the thing that actually I used to wrestle with Mutar. He
Yeah.
was like, yo, you know, I'm doing these talks and the kids keep asking about you. I'm like, okay, I gotta learn.
Yeah.
I can't be out there just talking
Yeah.
just to be talking.
You felt, I think what you're explaining is that you felt a bit restricted.
Absolutely.
Coming in, you had the microphone, you had the platform, you had the ability to speak, and you see people were gravitating to you.
Absolutely.
However, you was like a cage in a bird. Like you were restricted. You couldn't
Yeah.
do much because you had
But
you needed
realizing
knowledge.
that itself is so important.
Yeah.
Because the problem
very
we have
important.
right now is a lot of people, they don't realize that it's a
Exactly.
responsibility, that they're restricted. They didn't have that influence that you had, or the exposure to people of knowledge or scholars to explain to them that, look, as much as you have accepted Islam, alhamdulillah, as much as mashallah you're very eloquent,
Yeah.
you know how to speak, that's also great.
Yeah.
But knowledge, قال الله قال رسوله قال الصحابة. If you don't have this, this is actually the, if you like the this is basically the knowledge that you have. That's
Yeah.
like your khazanah. That's like what you have in storage.
Yeah.
If you can't take from that, what do you give to the people? فاقد
Yeah.
الشيء لا يعطيه. If you don't have it yourself, you can't give it to others.
Sahih.
And I wish that a lot of people who are exposed to fame, for whatever reason it may be, if they had this realization, then a lot of the harms that we see on YouTube and the likes, that wouldn't be the case. So I think that's a very
I want
important
to add to
lesson.
that. Not even exposed to fame. Muslims, generally speaking, like people nowadays, it's like I think maybe social media world,
Yeah.
but people aren't afraid of what might come out their mouth.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
They're,
exactly.
it's very easy. Like when it comes to, for example, when it comes to hospital work, when it comes to being a doctor, no one is going to get in the operation room and say, hey, listen, I see some YouTube videos. I'm going to do the operation on this person.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the deen of Allah, it's like everybody feels like they have an opinion that should be heard, or they feel like they can give a fatwa, or they feel like they can talk about this. When this is more severe than that.
Subhanallah.
This is more severe than
Which
that.
one of the signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah?
Subhanallah.
وَإِعْجَابُ كُلِّ ذِي رَأْيٍ بِرَأْيِهِ.
Hey,
That
sahih.
every single person is amazed with his own opinions. One of the signs.
Subhanallah.
When you do that, فَانْتَظِرِ السَّاعَةِ.
Allah
That's when you
Akbar.
can expect Sa'ah to happen. Allah musta'an. The day and age that we live in.
See, one of the things that resonated with me was a statement of Imam al-Bukhari,
Mm.
rahimahullah ta'ala, when he said, al-ilm qabla qawli wal amal.
Hey.
Allah Akbar.
So I understood that even coming up in the streets, coming up in the music business, whatever it is, you know, that was always something that was already instilled in me before Islam.
Mm.
So, you know, like you said, you know, as Muslims, regardless of what level of understanding we have, we are constantly in battle, you know, with our nafs.
Yeah.
But as a revert, you're battling zeal,
Yeah.
you know, because it's like you found the truth. You actually found your true purpose. You might have thought that basketball was your purpose. You may have thought that track was your purpose. You might have thought that rap was your purpose. But when you find out your true purpose is a whole newfound, experience that the heart is having. And, your mind, all these things, all your faculties is kind of revolved around something that's so intense that you do feel compelled to expound on those emotions by way of the tongue, by way of the speech. So that is one of the things that I think we see a lot with, influencers and celebrities when they accept Islam.
That zeal is pushing them forward.
That zeal is pushing them forward. And then a lot of times you find where, African American Muslims who come from, sports, entertainment, whatever the case may be, they ultimately, with the zeal, they connect it to nationalism.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's like, I found the truth. And although I understand that the truth is universal, it still kind of fills a void that I may have struggled with being a black man in America.
You're connected to social causes, basically.
Social causes, exactly.
Yeah.
So and that's another thing that you have to learn how to navigate through once you become Muslim. I think the most important thing as well is, of course, your surroundings. Because like, if you're in a space where everything you're doing and everyone around you is in complete opposition of Islam, and you find Islam, that environment is no longer conducive to anything that's going to be of any benefit as far as your growth in Islam.
100%.
So that was another thing that I took into consideration, and I kind of just fell off the grid. So like, when I did get incarcerated, a lot of my peers from my previous, career, it was kind of like, we hadn't even seen this guy, and now he's like in this situation, because I totally fled. Like I fled with my deen.
So you knew you had to get out of that environment in order for you to grow. So this is what led you to Egypt. You knew you needed knowledge, and plus the environment wasn't good for you.
But this shows the importance as well of, like you've mentioned, you become Muslim, you have all this zeal. It's the importance of those people around you who are Muslim, or who might even have some knowledge. It is their responsibility to be sure that they influence you in a good way and they keep you within your limits and they advise you to go and seek knowledge. Not that and unfortunately this happens, not that somebody becomes Muslim as an influencer and then automatically they exploit him. Oh, he became Muslim, yallah, let's put him on my podcast here and on my YouTube, and then they push him forward as some kind of sheikh or whatever. All of that to increase their own views on YouTube, to increase their clout, to increase their reach to people, not caring about this individual and what his needs are. His needs are to seek knowledge.
But I'm sure you probably was kind of privy to that coming from the industry.
Definitely.
So you probably seen already people who might try to exploit you.
And that was another reason, once again, that was another reason why I knew I had to study, because, you got, and this is why, scholars like Sheikh Ubaid, and a lot of the Tulab, a lot of the, students of knowledge, why I never was hesitant to seek advice. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would get invited by people who were known deviants. And the invitation would be so warm, so fuzzy, and it's like, instead of just, like I said, I was never in a rush to be heard.
No.
I wanted to be a benefit when I opened my mouth, right? So seeking advice and surrounding myself by brothers that can benefit me is what helped me navigate through, choosing the right, venues to speak, choosing the right, masajid to visit, choosing everything that would be a benefit to my growth. And that comes from, actually understanding the value of what you found, what you've been guided to. And I think that, unfortunately, some of us see particular value. You understand? And this is something that is widespread even in our communities. Like, you might have a brother that go to prison, he become Muslim. Automatically you think the value of that was protection. He became Muslim in prison for protection. Or he became Muslim because the Muslims and they have a abundance of resource and wealth. So it's like there's always some particular value that you find when you become Muslim and you start to get acquainted with the community and you extract what you find to be in conformity with your own desires. But for me, I truly wanted to be, the best me.
Yeah.
And how I landed to Egypt, just to answer your question before, was kind of weird because, I spent my first Ramadan in Kuwait. And I remember I wanted to go to the Jamia out there.
What year was that when you was in Kuwait?
This was 2009.
Okay.
This was 2009.
When you first became Muslim.
First became Muslim, and I did an interview. I believe it was on Iqra.
On what?
Yeah,
Iqra,
with
Al Jazeera.
brother, yeah. No, it wasn't Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera was here.
Oh.
When I made Umrah here, I was only a Muslim 3 months.
Allahu Akbar.
So when I made that announcement on Al Jazeera, I actually brought the weight of everything that I was trying to run from on my shoulders. It was a public announcement that even people who were in close proximity of me didn't even know I had became Muslim. Yeah, so that Al Jazeera interview was my coming out party.
Yeah. Telling the world.
From a real coming out. Stuff for a lot of me. But it's like and that brought the weight of everything on me.
Perfect.
Because like I said, that first 3 months was me going to sit with brothers like Abu Yusuf Khalifa. He was the imam at Masjid Iqwa in Brooklyn. I was able to get back on the train again. Nobody noticed me. It was like I had a beard. It was like I was Clark Kent.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, it was like the Superman suit was going. And I was able to actually get on the train, go all right to Brooklyn, sit down with the brothers, learn. So I was gradually grooming myself. So to get back to like Kuwait, I wanted to go to university. I heard that one of the professors there was Sheikh Falah Ismail, rahimahullah ta'ala.
When you were in Kuwait?
When I was in Kuwait, I sat with Sheikh Ahmed Subei and Sheikh Muhammad Al-Anjali. And, even though I was invited by some other individuals, I had to find, people that I knew were known for calling to the Sunnah. So this was like, this was something that came natural because of how I used to move prior to Islam.
Sorry, to just make the connection, right? The way you became Muslim. First, the moment you became Muslim, was it Abu Yusuf Khalifa or maybe through someone else and he's the first person who taught you? And how did that happen? How were you exposed to Salafi?
I became Muslim in Abu Dhabi, right?
Okay.
When I came back to the States,
first student that you connected with that cultivated you
to was Abu Yusuf Khalifa.
Yep. And he already instilled those things in you, connected you to the scholars, Sheikh Falah, Sheikh Muhammad.
And the beautiful thing about that time is that I benefited from a lot of students who were in harmony at one time. At the time, even brother, who y'all know, Shahid Muhammad was another brother who contributed. Hassan Sumai. It's like I was, it was just a different time.
You had a lot of people helping you around that time from the
There's a lot of harmony, no fitting. Everyone was like,
no fitting.
Alhamdulillah.
These brothers that I can, mention, it would take up a lot of time of this podcast, but it was
everything was good.
It was such a harmonious moment, and it was like any direction I turned to, it was always a benefit. It was always someone who was willing to aid me in my journey.
Yeah, that's.
Sorry, I diverted you from the question again.
Yeah, okay.
No, I wanted to answer that. Just twist it a little bit. So, before you went to go study, right? You said you spoke to some of the scholars, Sheikh Abdul Razak, and others from the students. Was there anything in particular they wanted you to focus on while starting that?
Absolutely. It's good that you asked that, because it was a brother who at the time, I think he might have just completed his bachelor in the Kuliya Hadith. And he was translating for me. So when I was with him, I kept asking, why I met Sheikh Abdul Razak. I kept asking, ask the Sheikh, kada wa kada. He's like, and the Sheikh kept saying, Ihfadha arba'in nawawi. Allah kept saying, memorize 40 hadith.
Allah.
So I said, okay, because this is how the translation kept coming back. He said, memorize 40 hadith. Okay, that's cool. Now, but ask the Sheikh this now.
Allah.
He kept saying the same thing.
That's what Sheikh Abdul Razak saying this.
Yeah. Memorize 40 hadith.
Yeah, never wavered.
Allah Akbar.
Never wavered.
And that he has a story about that. Remember, he went to Africa, and he said, I can't remember what country it was, but he was talking about when he went there was a lot of bid'ah, there was a lot of shirk, there was a lot of it was corrupt, right? People stealing, people doing a lot of different things. He started teaching this book, Al-Ra'inawiyya.
Yeah.
He said by the end of his trip, finishing the book, he said, Wallahi, I seen a difference.
Absolutely.
And it just changed. It was starting to change the community. This book right here is a ni'mah.
Wallah, it's a
Yeah. And
overlooked, amazing book. Allah,
this-
that's
this
the
is-
one, man.
SubhanAllah, this is
That's
why I
the-
love the Sheikh so much to this day, because that advice actually molded me.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of new Muslims in general, don't really have any direction on how to start building a foundation. Because you get the basic advice. You should read the Quran.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, you can read the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the Quran is just clear in itself,
Mhm.
but a lot of the Quran has to be explained.
Exactly.
No.
Then another direction would be read the hadith.
Yeah.
Okay, you can read
Sahih
the
Bukhari.
hadith.
It's too much, yeah.
Yeah, you can read the hadith, but implementing
It's something
also
else.
needs some form of guidance.
No.
So-
So the beauty about 40 hadith
Mhm.
is that it is a great introduction to the religion.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And when the Sheikh, wallahi, I don't know how many times I kept trying to allude to another question. He will only revert back to the same answer.
Allah.
And I learned later that that was implementing hikmah. That
No.
was wisdom.
Yeah.
That he would not allow, he wouldn't cater to my zeal.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the zeal was there. It's like, I'm thirsty.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
feed me more.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
give me something else. Like, give me something else.
Yeah, what's next?
But
Mustalah
scholars
hadith.
know, and this is the beauty of the ulama, and this is why people can't use the term sheikh or alim loosely.
Yeah,
No.
100%.
Because the assessment that scholars have when they stand before an individual,
Mhm.
they're able to gauge and determine what capacity that individual has.
Yeah.
No.
And at the time, all of this makes sense to me later, but
Yeah.
at the time, the sheikh was doing me a justice.
100%.
No.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he wouldn't allow me to, just veer off into this,
Allah
this
Akbar.
you know what I'm saying, this zilful type of emotion. He kept it, confined to a place where I just got defeated. Like,
Allah
you know what,
Akbar.
all right.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
you don't have-
accepting.
yeah, you don't have
I'm
to
accepting.
say no more.
Yeah.
And this is something, subhanAllah, you reminded me about scholars, generally speaking, that are Rabbaniyun. Yani there are
Yeah,
people who
so-
cultivate,
Yeah.
right? And this is the way of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Sallallahu
This is why you have different hadith where you have the companions asking the same question, but getting what? Different answers.
Different
No.
answers, yeah.
Why? Because of the hikmah. Rabbani.
Each person's different.
Each one's different. Different
That's why
situation.
Rabbani, the scholars they mention, من هو العالم الرباني الذي يربي على صغار العلم قبل كبار
Hey,
الجزء.
wallah.
Is the one who cultivates people upon the small knowledge before the big knowledge. In other words,
100%.
those issues that are easily understood and are important before they dive into the more complicated, bigger issues. So that's a danger, because now somebody becomes Muslim. What do these Khawarij, Takfiris, what do they do? You become Muslim, they want to put the weight of the whole ummah on your shoulders. Oh, look at Palestine, what's happening in this
Yeah.
country, Allah, social issues, and look.
And you know what? Even on a smaller issue, not to cut you off,
No.
another thing you run into is, the awam, the lay people, the little bit that they know. They want to bombard the new Muslim.
Yeah.
It's like the first thing you need. They on your head about the asbab, like your pants, like.
Yeah.
I don't even know Fatiha yet. You always talking about my pants. You know what I'm saying? So this is what a lot of reverts run into, and I think that that would be a podcast in itself. Just
100%.
talking about all the different conditions that come with being a revert and stuff that those who are entrusted with aiding, cultivating, and nurturing them upon Islam. It will point out how severe that is.
Yeah.
To be able to identify and acknowledge those things.
100%.
So
That can even become a program, really.
Absolutely.
Have a new Muslim program.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Help develop them to get past, because like you said, you have the awam, but the general people, but you also have just a lot of information generally out there. Different communities, different people. We need to make sure we have something for the awam, or the new Muslims rather, to grow and cultivate. So
Inshallah,
they become
inshallah
Muslim.
we have, Inshallah we have.
Inshallah,
yeah.
sir.
we
Inshallah,
gonna,
sir.
yeah,
Inshallah, sir.
We're going to announce that later. We definitely don't want to digress
So-
when we speak about this benefit that the brothers.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Allah bless it.
No.
Allah bless it.
mean,
Okay, so moving on. So when you went to Egypt, which markaz were you studying in? Or
I was in Marcus al-Fajr at first.
okay, yeah, I was there as well.
Yeah.
What year was that? When you joined?
That was
2010.
2010.
11? 10. Okay, I was there in
Yeah.
2011 in Marcus Fajr.
Yeah, 2010. I went to Marcus al-Fajr first, then I went to Marcus al-Ibana.
Oh, mashallah.
So now, Marcus al-Fajr, you know, they were teaching from Arabiya Bania Day.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was a lot of Shefawi.
Yeah,
A lot of conversation. And it's amazing because, you know, all of the students that went to Egypt to actually learn Arabic, you know, we had to actually figure out how to use the resources that was there to get, you know, the better course of growth in the language. For example, you know, we got a knot on our tongue. And, you know, we speak English. It's like, you know, Arabic, you need your whole mouth.
Yeah.
You need your chest. You need, you know,
Especially your throat.
you need more. You know, you use more.
100%.
I used to make this joke, like if you like with the gag a person that speak English, he can still probably sneak words out, like you know the key is over there. But if you was a gag someone who speaks Arabic, you know, he probably would be in danger because it's like, you know, he needs more
to work with.
Yeah, he needs more to work with. So what I found with Marcus al-Fajr, the curriculum was jade.
Yeah.
But I think the way the school was structured, if you remember, you know, like when everyone leaves, it's kind of like this mixing that goes on, like right at the very top of the street. And it's just like, and then people were, you know, acknowledging me as loon. I even had one of my teachers one day wanted to take a selfie, and I was like, I gotta get out of here.
I noticed that at Marcus Fajr.
Yeah, Marcus Fajr. And I'm not to downplay the school, but I'm just saying for what I was trying to do, and what leads, and I didn't get the opportunity to really speak about why I ended up in Egypt, because Kuwait was cool, but it was like soon I got off the plane, you brother Amir. Same thing, UAE, like, you know, most of the countries, Muslim countries that I was visiting, people knew,
they recognized you.
Yeah. But the Egyptians, alhamdulillah, they're so immersed in their own culture. They didn't care who Amir was or who Moon was, and it was like the perfect place.
It's a getaway.
The benefit.
Yeah, 100%. Especially where you were. If you're in Medina to Nasser, like the old area, you can easily.
Man, you can float through. The only people that really noticed me was other students.
You
know, and then students were a lot more cordial and respectful. Versus, you know,
they're not like awam. They're not like awam. I think if you compare Fajr and Ibana, I think you mentioned the free mixing and stuff. I think Ibana was like a Salafi. Upon the manage, but Fajr was kind of like, because I remember
Fajr was a bit mixed. There's some issues there.
I remember all of the people that would come back to the UK that would go Egypt from if the masjid I used to be at, like in Ikhwani Sururi Masjid, they used to go Fajr, all of them.
And it was even a few issues in the book, in the curriculum. But, you know, that, you know, some of the brothers that pointed out. So that was what led me to go to Marcus al-Ibana.
Mumtaz.
But the thing with Marcus al-Ibana, they were, you know, they were sticklers on grammar. On Nahu. So Fajr was more, you know, and it was crazy because you remember the time, like, you know, you bumping the Fajr students, they were just speaking. They were just talking. It was like, oh,
that's one thing I liked about Marcus al-Fajr. A lot of conversation. Grammar was like very little, maybe till book 2.
Exactly.
But you'll find that, look, it's kind of like a trade-off. Any Arabic institute you're going to go to, you're going to learn that. And I always find this the case. When I teach Arabic, the first thing I ask the student is, why do you want to learn Arabic? You tell me the reason why. If he says to me, I want to learn Arabic because I want to have conversations, I want to go to Saudi, I got employed at some kind of company in UAE, I said to him, okay, khalas, I'll teach you Bani Yadayk, the Arabic conversational course, so that you can learn how to talk. If the person says to me, no, I want to learn Arabic strictly first and foremost to understand the Quran and the Sunnah. Then I say, okay, no Bani Yadayk for you. Let's focus on Medina books and those books that are grammar heavy, because that's what you need. Because Arabic has receptive skills and productive skills. Receptive skills such as reading and listening, you need grammar for that in order to understand. Whereas the productive skills, which is how to speak and how to write, then that's completely different. So it's really about establishing the connection between the student's learning goal, and the curriculum. So if those two things are not in sync, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is you're going to find someone who wants to understand the Quran and the Sunnah, but then he signs up for Fajr or he learns Bani Yadayk, for example, and then it'll be like after 6-7 months, I still can't understand the hadith. Okay, it's because this is not your curriculum. And the other thing, opposite is also true. If you want to learn how to speak and you do Medina books, you do Medina book for a year, you still can't speak. Because they're two different curriculums with different goals.
Even with Marcus al-Fajr, with Arabiya Bani Yadayk, like you mentioned, even when you get the book too, the Arabic, I mean, the grammar is still being learned through conversation.
Yeah.
So if the teacher is not breaking it down,
Yeah.
you're not actually learning it from the curriculum itself.
Yeah, that's the
No.
same thing with even Medina books. Like
Yeah.
if you got a good teacher,
Yeah.
they're going to break the grammar down as you go.
Yeah.
But if not, it's going to just seem like conversation's going to be more
Yeah.
focused on.
Yeah. But
But-
Medina book is just grammar.
But
Yeah.
Ali
Most
Ba-
people don't know. Medina book is the grammar subject,
yeah.
part of a much bigger curriculum at the Jamia. It's not the whole
They
program.
got you learning grammar without knowing that you're learning grammar.
Yeah,
In a certain
exactly.
extent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, but Marcus Ali Banner, you knew you were learning grammar.
Yeah.
Because they spent a lot of time doing
Focusing on it, yeah.
a lot of sarf. So it's
Mhm.
like, you know, we would do class after class. I mean, we even actually had to break down the minimum tussle, the minimum fussle. We had to
Mhm.
ask. It was so, but the thing was, a lot of the students in Marcus Ali Banner couldn't speak.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
right.
You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah.
So what
a
I was
trade-off.
getting to was, you know, a lot of the students figured out how to benefit from both.
Okay.
So it's like you go to Marcus Ali Fajr, right?
Mhm.
You stay there to probably Mustawa Khamis.
Yeah, yeah. Get this conversation.
Then you can leave, go
Yeah.
to Marcus Ali Banner, you
Learn
know what I'm
your
saying?
grammar.
And
Get up on your
get
grammar.
the grammar.
Alhamdulillah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it worked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It actually worked. You know what I'm saying?
Allah
So
Akbar.
you know,
So how long you spent in Egypt, by the way?
little over a year,
Mumtaz.
but I spent like maybe 6 months straight learning Arabic, and I say this to a lot of you know, new Muslims
Mhm.
aspiring to learn the language. You know, you can't give up.
Yeah.
You can't give up.
It's an
Because
ocean.
I was a weak student.
Mm.
You know, I was a weak student, not deficient because of laziness or anything. It's just, you know, the pace in which you learn in Egypt is very, very fast. And it's instinctive for a teacher to overlook a student.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like any education
Yeah.
or institution.
Yeah, they call
Where
that the
you-
curse of knowledge.
Exactly.
Curse of knowledge, whereby the teacher,
Yeah, because the
he's
teacher.
speaking on a level, but he doesn't really know. Because he knows it, he thinks it's easy. It's called the curse of knowledge. So
Yeah.
you don't really know the student where he needs.
Or in some cases, they'll give the student a couple shots
Yeah,
and he kind of won't comply.
yeah,
Yeah.
Then it's like, you know what? I'm here.
Yeah, next
You
one.
know,
Yeah.
and then the attention goes away.
Yeah.
Because, you know, teachers utilize students to teach.
yeah,
You know, so if I can't feed off you to teach the rest of the class,
yeah.
Yeah.
then instinctively a teacher will pivot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then I couldn't write fast. So I used to have to take pictures of the blackboard. I had to do a lot of things to try to like keep up.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there was a lot of people who was in Marcus Ali Banner who actually their first language was Arabic,
Mm.
you know.
But they were just learning how to speak
Grammar.
Fusha.
They was
Yeah.
learning how to speak Fusha and they
Classical
was learning
Arabic.
grammar.
Okay.
You know,
Got you.
because a lot of they probably couldn't.
They didn't know it.
Yeah,
So let's fast forward. So you was studying Arabic in Egypt. That's what you went there for. Then fast forward to when you got incarcerated. Now you're in the prison system, and tell us about how you kept that ability to try to seek knowledge. Like, because obviously you're limited now. So when you were outside, you had the world was in front of you. You was like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to
sure.
Egypt. I'm locking myself away there,
Yeah.
doing my thing. Now, how does it fast forward and play into the incarceration?
yes, it's crazy because I was telling a brother on the way here about how I was just getting the sweetness of Arabic.
Yeah.
I was just getting, like, I was just getting. I'm going to the souk just to talk.
Yeah.
You know, and it all got taken away. You know,
Subhanallah.
Qadrullah, you know, it all got taken away. So now, while I'm incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
because I started my first 6 months in Belgium.
Mm.
So, and I was locked down 23 hours a day.
SubhanAllah.
You know, for 6 months, 23 hours a day.
Wow.
you
Is
know.
that normal or is it just Belgium's situation?
Well, that's really pretty much how solitary confinement works.
Mm-hmm.
They put you in solitary confinement.
I mean, I was a American citizen, and the way the Forest federal prison in Belgium, or how it works, is that everything is locked down.
Mm.
It's a maximum joint. So 23
Wow.
hours a day, 1 hour rec. We got 2 showers a week. We got a phone call every other day for 5 minutes.
Mm.
You get 1 hot meal a day,
Wow.
you know, and it was just
So you were like that for 6 months.
for 6 months. So I was able to get a hold of books that I had in my property.
Mm.
Alhamdulillah.
So that's what
So they let you take them books into solitary
into
confinement.
into my cell.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, it was beautiful. On the downside, I mean, you get your own TV, you get a DVD player, espresso machine. So they had other
Word.
things. They had other things that accommodate for the conditions.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
So you don't end up talking to yourself.
yeah.
Now is the UK is American prison the same with solitary confinement? I don't think you get TV and
Nah, you don't
espresso
get none of
machines and
that.
stuff.
Nah,
Yeah.
solitary confinement, solitary confinement.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So this sounds
different.
strange
This
to me.
is solitary confinement as far as movement goes.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You only 23-hour lockdown and 1 hour movement is the core functionality of solitary confinement. So anyway, being in that environment, and they didn't allow me to have a cellmate because I was an American citizen. So that just gave me a lot of time to myself.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
And it's like everything I struggled with learning Arabic, it all clicked.
Yeah.
Everything just clicked.
Alhamdulillah.
So now I was able to preserve that sweet moment I was having
Yeah.
by just reading.
Alhamdulillah.
So even to today, you know, my response time may not be as, effective as it could be, but my comprehension is way much stronger.
Yeah.
And if I sit and read, if I see, I can comprehend things better because I was just confined to that.
Yeah.
So
I think that speaking aspect comes with time.
yeah,
A lot of practice.
It does.
Yeah.
Like even
It
the
does.
brothers like in the Jamia here, if you see a brother who lives outside, he's going to usually be a little slightly behind somebody who might be living in the
Yeah.
corridors with the students.
No,
Because you
Yeah.
got a roommate who you're speaking to 24/7.
no.
As long as it's
living-
not a Westerner.
As long as it's not a Westerner.
Yeah.
But if you're living outside, then you're with your family.
Yeah.
And obviously your family doesn't know the language for the most part, unless
Yeah.
you got some Arab
Yeah.
wife or something like that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you're speaking English all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how you were able to preserve it when you were in Belgium. You had the books with you. They let you get some books with you.
Yeah, let me get a few books with me. And then once I got into, the federal prison, just get past all the other stuff that led to me. I mean, once I got into the feds, it's crazy because you're only allowed to have 5 books, right?
Wow.
I think through the majority of my incarceration, I might have had 92 books.
Allah Akbar.
Maybe 70 of them was all Arabic.
At a time? Or
5 at the time.
Oh, 5 at
You can only have 5.
But you had 90 at a time, or you was
I
just
had 90 at a time.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, at one time you were allowed 90. Or
No,
you
I
changed the 5 to another 5 to
No,
another 5.
basically, I replaced my locker
Yeah.
with books.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
I kept one shelf for my food,
Yeah.
and then I would keep like a commissary bag of food under my bed,
Yeah.
and I filled the rest of the shelves
books.
with books.
Oh,
and I would
okay.
just leave 5 in display. 'Cause you
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
have 5 that's
Yeah,
visible.
Yeah.
So
The rest
everything else,
is- it's
everything
in your
else in my
locker.
locker.
Allah Akbar.
Inshallah, after I'm gonna show y'all a picture. I see how a picture of it. It's crazy. So
Allah Akbar.
and even in some places where they were a little bit more stricter, I would just hide books in some of the other brothers' lockers. Like
Split them up.
yeah.
Split them up.
Then I got the one spot where I actually, I learned that a volume counts as a book.
Allah.
So how everything you guys see, I just created volumes. Like, all 16 of these are just one volume.
And they probably didn't even know.
Yeah.
They didn't know no better because it was no Arabic. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, the wisdom it just, he had to use to preserve and protect this opportunity to utilize this time to get stronger.
And seek knowledge.
And then another thing was just being, like I said, a weak student as far as, learning Arabic. Come to find out I was more of a benefit to, the brothers in prison than I could ever imagine.
That was my next question. My next question was, because I know you was doing a little bit of da'wah in prison as well.
No, I'm sorry.
So how did that play out as far as, how did that go? Tell us a little bit about that.
Like Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam.
Yeah. Allahu Akbar.
SubhanAllah, man. I mean, the story of Yusuf, got me through. It got me through.
SubhanAllah.
Wallahi, I mean, I revisited that surah numerous times, extracted, benefit from throughout it,
Allahu Akbar.
and tried to apply it, every chance I got. But
That's the beauty, about the stories in the Quran. Stories in the Quran, they're so different and so vast and so many different stories. because we all go through different situations in life.
No, sorry.
You know, so every single person, you're bound to find a story in the Quran that relates to your particular situation.
Yeah.
Subhanallah, whatever situation you're going through. So
I want to
yeah,
I want to interrupt the podcast a little bit. Give a shout out to Saud, man.
yeah.
We got the brother up
Yeah,
early. He's
hung,
taking a
yeah,
nap.
he hung in there as long
Hey
as
man,
he
shout out to
could.
Saud. Shout out to
Yeah.
Smokey Bears.
Yeah,
Mashallah.
yeah.
Smoky
Yeah.
bears,
Yeah,
mashallah.
look,
Our
look.
sponsor.
Next time out here, we're gonna have a microphone for you out here.
Yeah, inshallah.
Mashallah. Mashallah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was definitely, and it's crazy, and this is why it's very important to surround yourself, by the people of the Sunnah,
Mm-hmm.
people who ascribe themselves to this blessed Dawah to Salafiyya, because application of whatever level of knowledge you obtain is going to be extremely effective, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're, weak in something, not even weak, but just whatever capacity Allah allow you to have, it's going to be a benefit as long as it's, in accordance to, the usul of the deen.
Yeah.
So
You don't have to be like a student of knowledge,
Nah.
متخرج جامعة إسلامية who graduated in order to benefit those around you.
Exactly.
You take with that what
And
you
I
learned.
learned that.
And
Yeah.
so forth.
Because I mean, I'll be honest with you, because of, the climate of the da'wah at one particular time, it was really a lot of fitting that came from whether or not people were qualified to be in front of the people.
Mm-hmm.
I never let that bother me while I was in prison, because I understood that a lot of these brothers had acquired Islam in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, the prison culture was being tied into their, adherence to the religion,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a very toxic combination.
Mm-hmm.
So with me being Muslim before I came to prison, which a lot of people don't know, and I hope that when they see this, they know I was Muslim before
Yeah.
I went to prison.
Yeah.
So the 3 years I was Muslim before I came to prison actually enabled me to establish a certain level of adab
Mm-hmm.
that I learned from sitting amongst the people of knowledge.
Yeah.
Extreme amount of patience,
Mhm.
because you're dealing with individuals who are still processing, the hardship that comes with incarceration and the things that they lost.
No.
So you're really dealing with people who are walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to say, like, tick tick boom, like the people that really like rahimahullah, man, like she used to always say, like, you walk around here and tick tick boom, like you just
Yeah.
So it's like when you're dealing with these brothers
Mm-hmm.
and you become very cognizant of their condition,
Yeah.
so you're able to administer remedy
Mm-hmm.
in portions.
Yeah.
You don't want to overwhelm them. You don't want to, overburden them. You want to give them dosages when the necessity presents itself.
No.
Mhm.
No.
And I learned that also being in prison. And it, like I said, being someone who wasn't considered a strength, in my process of learning Arabic, but I always was able to absorb a clear understanding of the basic fundamental principles of Islam. All of, saying the books, Sheikh al-Islam, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, definitely strengthens one aqidah
Mm-hmm.
and, understanding of, the usul of sunnah and so on and so forth. So I was able to, take from that and give, or administer a proper amount of dosage that actually helped a lot of brothers in ways I never saw myself,
Allah,
quote unquote, qualified. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that was the thing that,
It's the sigar al-ilm, like we said. It's a small knowledge that makes the biggest
make the
difference.
biggest difference. Yeah.
Now,
So
were
the
you-
Salat people used to memorize it here in Saudi Arabia.
Exactly.
Even old people, young people,
Yeah,
everyone memorized
100%.
these kind of books.
Yeah.
And now, when you were in prison, was it something that was easy for you? Like, because you were able to give khutbahs, right?
No, I'm sorry.
So was that something that the prison made easy for you to give khutbahs? And also, were you giving lessons as well, or?
The thing is, I was just this open book. When I first got into the federal prison system, it was a brother named Yahya.
Mm-hmm.
Hafidullah, man, wherever he's at, man, may Allah preserve him.
Yeah, I mean.
He was a white brother.
Mm-hmm.
And he went through painstaking efforts to maintain some structure. But you know, unfortunately, race plays a very significant part in how people receive you.
Yeah.
So when you got a prison full of African Americans and a few foreigners are out of
Didn't really take
sprinkling,
him serious.
but he used to, you know, he used to frequent more with foreigners. You know what I'm saying? People who were born Muslims.
Yeah.
You know, Pakistani, Arabs, whatever the case may be, for whatever reasons they were there, don't really matter. And I think a lot of the African American brothers looked at that as, you know, an issue.
Yeah. Okay.
Even though they didn't really open doors for him
Yeah.
to come and be in a space. So it was just kind of an oxymoron.
Okay.
So when I got there, I started kind of like as like an assistant imam. I was like, you know what I'll do, I'll help you compile some things that I think would be beneficial.
So he was also an inmate?
Yeah, he was an inmate.
Okay, and he was the one who was given dawah at first.
Well, he was actually entrusted with the religious affairs of the community.
So he's like the chaplain.
Was the imam.
He was like the chaplain.
He was the imam.
Oh wow.
Because the chaplain they bring from
outside.
Yeah, the chaplain pretty much is a cop.
Uh huh.
You know what I'm saying? He worked for the federal government. So, you know,
government inside is
I mean, no, we had a good guy. You know, his name was what was his name? SubhanAllah. It's crazy because he actually was a good brother. He wasn't, you know, the strongest, you know what I'm saying, as far as knowledge goes, but he was very wise in, you know, assisting the community to function, you know, without his involvement.
You mean the chaplain who they had involved?
Yeah.
Now the chaplain thing. This is kind of off topic, but how, like when you're in prison, right? The chaplain thing, I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around. From what I understand is, from what people have told me who worked in the prisons, is that when you go in as a chaplain, you're a Muslim, but you're not really for the Muslims only.
You have to facilitate all faiths.
So if they ask, like, even a guy told me directly, he said, if a devil worshiper needs help with his worship, you have to help facilitate.
You have to facilitate. That's a very slippery slope. Now, it used to be a chaplain before the guy that I was mentioning. His name was Abdul Rahman. Now, he was firm. So what happened was when these other inmates who had to, I guess, set up their ibadah or whatever the case may be, he would get out their way. Like, yo, y'all can do your own thing. You know what I'm saying? But when the Muslims, you know, so he filled the position, but he abstained from.
Kind of like found his way out.
You know, and that was actually probably one of the reasons why he's no longer in the prison.
Because if you don't do what they're saying, then automatically they gotta.
You know, it goes both ways, man.
I mean, them jobs is serious. Like you said, it's a federal job. So you go in, they're looking at your social media, they're looking at what you say and do, what you teach.
Absolutely.
And if you start teaching, like wala wa bara, I'm sure you'll probably be removed in a second.
Straight away.
Start talking about the Christians, start talking about the Jews.
Which shows the importance of those inmates who are doing this job.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I'm saying.
100%.
Like,
because you're not restricted.
I understood, you know, the severity of, you know, statements and actions.
Yeah.
So I figured that when we give the khutbah, you know, we focus on a lot of ariqaq. You know what I'm saying? You focus on like heart softness. You know what I'm saying? Stuff that will keep the brothers, you know,
in good mood, in good faith.
Yeah, in a good state. Because, I mean, you need that injection every week.
Of course.
Because throughout the week, you're dealing with prison.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, because, you know, in prison, a lot of guys is known for being fiery and admonishers. Even in prison, it's like,
what's
and I'm not going, not even trying to be funny. They get a lot of this. It used to come from some of the two labs.
What they see, exactly.
From the
a lot of
outside.
it came from the two labs because they're sending in these reminders, so to say, that were beneficial sometimes. But then there's sometimes stuff is going into prison about who's on it and who's off it. And the last thing a person in prison needs to be worrying about.
Another form of sectarianism.
Men has issues that are taking place outside of the prison.
Did you see this taking place when you were in the prison? Absolutely. Like, did you see people like actually separating from the body of the Muslims?
Absolutely. And I used to send, you know, messages out, you know, addressing this, you know, but more so paying more attention to what was in proximity and not get too overly invested, but still sending messages out like, listen, these brothers need to keep these issues, you know what I'm saying, wherever they may be.
Us and a lot of these issues should have never crossed the ocean.
Exactly.
They should have.
Imagine doing hajar of someone in prison. Here outside, maybe you find someone else. Imagine doing hajar of your roommate, your cellmate.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think they had some spots that was actually trying to establish the hudud. Like, they would catch brothers drinking khamr and want to give lashes in prison. It's like, you can't get lashes in the street.
That's crazy.
In the free world, you can't get lashes.
So what did these brothers?
But see, the thing is, like I was saying, not to cut you off, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you good.
The thing is that's why I felt like what I was able to benefit from was, you know, it enabled me to kind of like keep things where they needed to be. We're trying to make it through a hardship that Allah placed on us for whatever reasons, whether it's known to us now or it'll come clear when we meet Allah. But we're dealing with a hardship. So the only way to navigate through this is to increase in ibadah, you know, increase in knowledge and understanding of Islam, increase in brotherhood was more important than anything, because a lot of times in prison, brothers be trying to imitate the kuffar when it comes to how their gang cultures and stuff is structured. So you may have certain consequences that may be prevalent amongst the gangs, and you find brothers trying to push the same type of line on a brother, and it's like, you can't do that to the brother.
Initiation.
Yeah, not even initiation. It's like he might be an informant.
Yeah.
Before he accepted Islam.
Yeah.
He accepted Islam now.
Yeah.
You know,
you have to forgive that.
My thing is, like, Allah forgave it.
Yeah.
So who are y'all to sit
like,
up here and like you want to see the brother paperwork? Wallahi, Yaki, I never knew what no brother was in prison for unless they shared it with me.
They had people asking for paperwork, like there was some.
Like, why are you in prison?
That's prison.
That's how they treat you inside prison.
Because if you a sex offender or something like that, you're gonna have a rough bid. You know what I'm saying? So it becomes a part of the culture to actually know what kind of individual you are. So, I mean, you know, you have a more praiseworthy way of assessing someone's character when it comes to Islam. You know, and it's more so for, you know, the benefit of the deen.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying about how brothers was incorporating prison culture into Islam.
So a new Muslim will come in and they were like, show me your papers, like this. Or what you in for? They try to check him sometimes.
Some spots they was on that with the Muslims, you know. But when I, you know, well, kind of let me give you this. So like with the brother Yahya, I want to get to that point because it is important to understand how I ended up in the position of dealing with these matters. Because in the back seat, remember, I'm just helping you put together some khutbah. I'm not really trying to, you know, because I see what's going on. I'm like, you know, this is not the Islam I know. You know what I mean? And I will try to advise when I could. But it started.
Even Yahya himself, he was on like some.
Nah, he was on it. I mean, he loved the religion. He loved the sunnah.
But he didn't have the.
He literally was a soldier who fought in Iraq. He actually physically evaded one of the fortresses of Saddam Hussein.
Wow.
And he told me about, I mean, shrink wrap money up to the ceiling. Like, he literally was boots on ground when they was, you know, commandeering this man's wealth. And to find out that he was sent on a mission that had nothing to do with, you know, the true purpose of why they were there. This changed his heart. This man
weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, this man
all he could find is wealth to be taken.
So he became Muslim there in Iraq.
He became Muslim once he came home from the war.
Realizing
now that, because you already know, like, you know, all of the hostility has, you know, went down. It's like the war is over. Now you supposedly reaping the benefit of it, but he's realizing, like, I might have just partook in something that was an atrocity. You know? And Allah changed his heart. So that's why he was like my closest Sahaba. You know, and I felt like I had to always shield him from some of the frustration that came with, you know,
that
the
position.
African American the position, but the African American Muslim, because they was like, okay, you know, you with the brother, man, tell him, you know what I'm saying, this is that, tell him that. It's like, how many times you want this man to get on the minbar, you know what I'm saying, and describe himself to the Sunnah? You know, it was crazy. So ultimately, he was just like, okay, why don't you give a khutbah occasionally, just to kind of like, I'm doing.
So you started passing it off to you.
And then it just really just fell complete, and I ultimately became the imam.
Now, where did you spend most of your time? Which prison?
Well, in the Feds, you move around a lot. So I started off at Butner, which is in North Carolina. I spent 3.5 years there. Then I ended up going to Yazoo, which is in Mississippi. I spent about a little over a year, something there. Then I went to Estelle Medium in South Carolina. I spent maybe a little close to 2 years there.
Wow.
And I came home from Coleman.
And Coleman's where? Where's that?
Coleman's in Florida. So
Yahya was where with you? I'm sorry.
Huh?
Yahya, he was where? Which
I was in Butner with me.
Okay.
So I was in Butner. I became the imam at the low. Then I went to the camp. I was the imam there. I get to Yazoo. Beautiful brother named Muhammad bin Philistine. He was strong student.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. He was a hafiz in Quran. He was very strong in hadith. And he had studied in Egypt as well. But I never met him in Egypt. And there was another brother, Isan, who I speak to all the time. He's in Atlanta now. Bengali brother. He's a hafiz in Quran. Memorized several different qira'at. Strong. So it was like the burden of being an imam in the previous prison got lifted, because now you got an imam now who's much more stronger than me. But then I became the sharif. I became the head of the security. So now I'm really dealing with the fitting that comes with the physical aspect of prison. So people don't understand, like, all of this became applicable due to understanding the religion and dealing with certain politics that's put in place. So even as the head of security, I was extremely diplomatic. So even the kuffar would come to us to rectify their affairs. You know what I'm saying? And that came from,
level of trust.
A level of trust, but applying the sunnah.
Exactly.
And being just.
Exactly.
Being just.
Because I could have easily, people in prison know, like the sharif, they say the sharif staff, when they come in, it's like, the sharif staff. It's like when they come, they bring in the business.
And they're going to deal with you in justice.
Injustice.
Yeah.
But when I had the position, it was like, anytime brothers see me cutting through the grass or coming through the rec yard, it was like, oh man, what's going on? Because I know this brother's out here and he's active. It's really something that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? And then you have people just like, you good? You know, Alabama car with you. Like so now you got the kuffar like
vitamin wow.
They want to get down with the Muslims now. They're like, well, we with you. Just let us know. Like, nah, it ain't all that, man. Y'all good. And it really just be go out there. Just
so you would say, like, just to summarize that, being in jail, giving dawah, being upon sunnah, being upon having knowledge, and then calling to it and acting on it in the jail, it even led an openness to even the kuffar seeing how just Islam was, and start inclining to you for different affairs.
Absolutely, because like the Muslims are the most loved, the most feared, and the most respected in prison.
Wow.
Some places it may be a little bit more than like it might be a little bit more fear and respect coming from that. Or some places you may have a lot more respect because of the adherence to the deen, but no fear because the brothers is kind of lenient. So to be in certain spots where we had ultimately collectively, you know what I'm saying, whether it was by me being at the head of the community or even a part of it, being with good brothers who understood what needed to take place gave us balance in those three ways we were received. So whether it was loved because mashallah people envied our brotherhood, they envied saying how we function as a Jamaat, because we had to be as self-sufficient as possible, because unfortunately a lot of the brothers who are learned wasn't coming into the prison. But and I hate to say it, but the Yahoo, they would have very small numbers, but a rabbi would come in there frequently as showing a presence. So all of the things that they were entitled to religiously, they would get. because they had outside presence.
Yeah.
But we would get handled a lot. I mean, Ramadan every year. You would think these people would get it after a couple years, like, but it was still the very first day, Sahur be late. Like, it was just always some type of, mishap, because it's like you may have to cater to one religious group for one particular holiday that they have, or some 2-3 day holiday they had, but you had to cater to the Muslims for 30 days. So you can imagine anyone that's in opposition of Islam, you know what I'm saying, having to subject themselves to, like, I gotta feed these guys.
The chaplain doesn't take care of those type of things?
No. The chaplain, like I said, he's police. So at the end of the day, he's just another cop. And then when it comes down to situations where the whole jail could actually get tore to shreds, they send our chaplain to us, like, y'all brothers,
calm down,
y'all brothers, and we looking at him like, yo, listen,
get out the way.
This thing go up, right? If this thing go up, you gonna be right with them, putting handcuffs on your brothers.
Wow.
Facts.
Wow.
So this is why I say, like, we have to be cognizant and aware of all of the circumstances that revolve around the Muslims as a whole, and not get so fixated on one particular aspect. I've seen that happen a lot with some of the students. You know what I'm saying? Getting so fixated on one matter, but really abandoning your post. Because if you're supposed to be a conduit between the ulama and the awam, then that is your position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is your position.
Shouldn't be getting caught up in the small affairs.
Small affairs. Because you got brothers in prison who are living and dying by that knife. You know what I'm saying? You got brothers in prison that's warring with the administration so that they can have the rights that they're entitled to. We fought for these things. At one time, they actually used to give you an infraction for having your pants hemmed. Literally. You go into the hole.
Wow.
Because it was a clause in the policy that said Islamic inmates are not allowed to have their pants above their ankles.
Wow.
So we fought this. This joint went all the way up to, like,
crazy.
And it got wiped out, because it's like, okay, so you mean to tell me if you're not a Muslim,
you can do
you can wear high waters?
You can.
That's what it is for them. For us, it's sunnah. You know. Then you would have other individuals who were deficient in knowledge of the sunnah, giving the administration of the BOP these passive fatwa. Well, no, just right over the ankle is fine. So brothers is coming with hadith, like, the Prophet says, some say anything above the shin, you know what I'm saying? But the ankle, above the ankle is sufficient. You know what I'm saying? So we want to implement the sunnah. We want that thing all the way up here. But they had these, whack jobs, man, Allah guide them, coming in and really making things difficult for the Muslims. So it's so much going on that brings me to my point, why it's so important to learn the religion. Not just for reverts like myself who come from influential backgrounds, but just in general. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, talib al-ilm faridatu ala kulli muslim. Seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. So it's not permissible for us to be ignorant about our religion. And I think that, limiting the scope of what that entails is where we're failing as far as people who ascribe themselves to knowledge. So that's a reminder for myself.
Jazakallah khair. Fast forwarding now. So we talked about, you seeking knowledge before, then seeking knowledge, and now you were giving dawah as well inside. Now tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now as far as dawah, because I've seen you have paid meals, you have different things.
Well, right now, my focus hasn't changed as far as my inclination to the youth. Because I believe, the flag bearers of Islam are the next generation.
Yes.
So looking at the state of, Islam as a whole, but ultimately looking at the state of the youth, my dawah efforts have been to try to connect more with the youth focus more on the youth and bridging, the generational gap
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of our communities.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you have, especially in America, you have a lot of, Muslims that came from Muslim countries,
Mm-hmm.
and their children are first generation Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is the kids are sponging up stuff that their parents can't even relate to.
Yeah.
And then you got
They
social
haven't seen
media.
it. They haven't lived through it.
Exactly. You got social media, all these other things, all these experiences that they're coming into.
Language barrier.
It's starting to, form a wedge between the parents and the children.
So that's why you're focusing on the youth to help bring
Bridge
that connection.
those gaps,
Bridge those
because
gaps.
everything starts at home.
Yes.
And this is what I believe to be a manhaj issue.
Mm.
So I think a lot of times what happens is, once again, you have some brothers who are entrusted with the affairs of the people, once again fixating on certain matters
Mm-hmm.
that are virtuous matters.
Mm-hmm.
But you're abandoning, and being grossly negligent and looking at the affairs that are going to take place
Mm-hmm.
if they're not addressed.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And that means the shabab.
No.
Yeah.
100%.
Understand? So we can fix up the masajid and do all of the things you want to do to make the community appear to be good.
No.
Yeah. But if the youth ain't there,
But
then
the
the next
youth ain't
generation, what's you going to do?
You ain't there.
But I found that, generally speaking, it's a major problem in the West, and I'm not gonna judge people's intentions or what have you. But at the end of the day, the youth are not the ones that pay the rent of the masjid.
Yeah,
I think it comes from that direction. These old guys, the older generations with the houses and the businesses, they're the ones that give the sadaqah. They're the ones that pay help for the masjid. So sometimes what happens, we follow some people, admins in masajid, they fall into that trap of trying to cater for the elders to keep the ship afloat, if you like. But then they forget the youth, and that's a problem.
And also, the youth take a lot of energy as well.
They take a lot of energy.
A lot of looking after them, a lot of stuff you're not going to get paid for.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've stressed with a lot of communities that invited me,
Mm-hmm.
and these may be communities that may not actually be firm in their adherence to the sunnah.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've learned, there's a commonality, is that they're all losing their babies. They're all losing their children.
Took me to the streets and to
Exactly.
social media, etc.
So it's like you can't be, led astray from the conditions of those who, had choice in matters that led them to misguidance or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at what will potentially be if you don't address, what's yet to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the generation of the youth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I've learned, and I've advised a lot of these administrations, is that they don't involve the youth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You understand? So when you having these administrative meetings and stuff, and there's not a single child present.
Yeah.
But when you think about the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you had teenagers leading war expeditions.
Yeah.
Allah Akbar.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, wallah.
Yeah.
So you mean to tell me you can't have a child on the board?
You had youth being set for Dawah.
Yeah.
Mus'ab ibn Umayr.
Mus'ab ibn Umayr, my
Yeah.
favorite companion. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is why, it's so important that we stop playing the cootie game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We was kids, it's like, oh, he got cooties.
Yeah.
So everything is like, is
You're afraid to get sick. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
like,
disease.
okay.
I don't know what that means, cooties.
Yeah.
That
It's like-
American
it's
thing.
It's like, stay away, stay away. I don't want to catch
away.
it. I don't want to catch
Because we
it.
used to do this thing, we as a kids, like circle, circle, dot, dot, now I got my cooties. So it's like, I got vaccination for you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's kind of what's been happening.
Yeah.
There's been these, excessive calls to abstain from communities and, particular individuals and so on and so forth that may have fell into some form of misguidance.
Mhm.
So what happens is you start looking for those signs.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, you're not looking at what's obvious. What's obvious is the kids is going in a direction, and so are yours.
Yeah.
Because even though you think you may have found some refuge in your own community because the sunnah and everything is strong, but the reality of it is, while you're holding firm to that particular aspect, you're still losing your children as well.
Yeah.
So that means that us as adults, because it's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, like you said, focusing on one thing, but overlooking things are more important. So you're focusing on this all, like you made the stay away from me. But then your children are being taken away through social media, ilhad, kufr, feminism, you name it.
Exactly.
You're turning a blind eye to that.
Yeah, because the danger of the person, he's a mubtadi.
Yeah, he might be a bit closer. That's the
that's
way of
dangerous.
Thinking. Yeah.
We all in agreement. No one's going to say there's not anything legislated that says that's a danger.
Yeah.
But we got other things
that also a danger,
that are extreme dangerous.
No.
And we got other movements that are
picking up. Yeah.
I mean, excessively picking up.
Yeah.
You know, that challenge your very existence, your very gender.
No.
You understand?
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, we're entrusted with way more than what a lot of us is focusing on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So true.
To answer your question, and I would definitely urge whoever's listening that these matters are far more detrimental. I'm not going to say far more important, because I think every thing that we try to combat that's in opposition of Islam is of importance. Is of equal importance. But I would definitely like to stress that we have to focus more on these youth. Just building a basketball court in the masjid is not, that's a pacifier.
Yeah.
You understand? That's
just
not,
keep them off the streets.
That's not a remedy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The remedy is involving them in the day-to-day operations of the things that sustain the community.
Yeah.
Kids should have keys to the masajid.
Yes.
If they want to hang out somewhere, let them hang out the masjid.
Yeah. This also teaches them responsibility. I mean, you're teaching them responsibility.
Empower them,
You're
you
dealing
clean
with
the wudu station.
Yeah.
That's your job. You vacuum the musalla. You know what I'm saying? So now you're breaking up the time along with the salat, because you got 5 prayers. That breaks up some of the day. Now, if you add a little bit more responsibility, that's virtuous in a sense, but the same rewarding and all of these good things. It wouldn't hurt a kid to say, you know what, hey, look, I'm gonna get back with y'all. I gotta run over here.
Yeah.
You know, and clean the musalla.
And the youth, they love that type of stuff. They love being in charge of things.
Yeah.
They love
And
it.
you should ask the youth as well. When you have these youth on the board, or you ask them, you can ask them this important question, which is, hey, why are you youth not attending the durus? Because they will tell you why.
Yeah.
Because the way you're teaching is boring to them.
Exactly.
You got a book in front of you, and قال الشيخ, you read in Arabic, and then you translate it in English, and the next one. That's not how you engage youth. That's not how you teach youth. You know, even the way the durus.
Yeah, that's a very old way of looking at trying to deal with the youth in this day and age,
Exactly.
especially with the attention spans we have today.
Yeah.
Trying to go over a book like that, you're going to lose. You don't even have to ask them, Aslan.
Yeah.
Anybody who's aware
No, if
and
they're
you're
in
looking
doubt,
at what they're doing,
ask them if they're in doubt.
there is. I mean, it's open. It's clear as day.
I'm gonna
It's
tell
clear as
you
day.
what's crazy is that when we look at the people of desires and the people of innovation.
Okay, I'm about to move your microphone up a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I think it keeps going down.
Yeah. They actually see the void.
Yeah, exactly.
They see the void. Because when you go into the qisas, you go into stories. Stories are more engaging.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know
definitely.
what I'm saying? Because when you're
100%.
teaching usul, it has to be broken up in increments in order to be understood.
When you say stories, you have to come up with stories. The
Stories.
Quran is full of stories.
Yeah, exactly.
The Quran is full of stories, right?
Yeah.
And then Hayat al-Sahaba, the lives of
Subhanallah.
the companions.
And how many
Akbar.
companions can you go through?
SubhanAllah. So like one of the things, you know, it's like I'm not trying to trademark no dawahs. Like and we've talked about this a lot about having your Sahaba rookie card.
Yeah.
Because like as a kid, I used to collect baseball cards.
Yeah.
So I came up with the concept is like have your Sahaba rookie card.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Mine's Musab ibn Umayyah.
I actually have it. There's actually this company that actually have
seen
these
it.
small
I
cards
seen it.
about each companion. I've got it at home. I used to read to my
I have it
kids.
here. I was just
Wallahi,
looking
I
at it.
So you got
see.
it.
Yeah, I know you see. I see you looking for
Yeah,
it. You
yeah.
actually did. You
Yeah, I
purchased
sent it
it.
to
I
you.
remember.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
sent it to
Yeah.
me. So the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
we know
Mm-hmm.
that following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi
Sallallahu
wasallam is following, a perfect way.
Mm-hmm.
But will never ever amount to the accomplishments of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when you look at the companions, they held on to this way.
Mm-hmm. I think what you're trying to say is just focus on how the Sahaba were developing.
Exactly.
And when they were developing, obviously, Islam had just came to them.
Exactly.
So as they developed in time. It didn't happen overnight.
It didn't happen overnight. That's my
It,
point.
it happened over time.
It
That's what you're
happened
saying.
over time. Absolutely. Jazakallah
Yeah,
khair for
just-
that. Because like the thing is, I'm so passionate about, because this was my example.
Mm-hmm.
When I found, the virtue of Musab ibn Umayyah and the connection,
Mm-hmm.
being that, he was sort of a celebrity.
Yeah.
You understand? And his abstinence from all of that.
One of the richest, he was basically the prince
Yeah.
of Mecca.
Yeah, Mecca.
When he became
The
Muslim, his
flower
parents
Mecca.
literally, they cut everything off from him.
they
He
said
became
his-
from a prince
To nothing.
to a
yeah.
pauper to nothing.
Or
So, they also used to say that his sandals used to get imported from Yemen. When I heard that, I was like, subhanAllah,
Yeah.
man, this guy was fly. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, when people used to approach me about the things that I quote unquote sacrifice for Islam,
Mhm.
it would just roll off me
yeah.
because I can reflect on Musab ibn Umayyah
Allah
Yeah.
Akbar.
and I could tell myself,
Yeah.
Amir, you ain't really give up nothing compared to
Yeah.
Musab
Yeah,
ibn
yeah.
Umayyah.
You know, the ulama always talk about this, connecting the youth, or connecting ourselves, generally speaking, to those who came before us,
Exactly.
knowing what they went through, knowing
No.
what they had to sacrifice, what
No.
they had to deal with from hardships. Then makes it look our situation like we didn't go through nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, but like
Yeah.
I said as well earlier, in the Quran and story of the companions, and this is the beauty. This is the beauty that we have the companions who are basically a whole community as role models.
Yeah,
Right.
Allah Akbar.
Because every single one of us is different. Yes, some of us are from a rich background. Some of us, we might be very strong. Some of us might have certain skills. Some of us might be eloquent. I guarantee you, if you look into the stories of the companions, you're going to find one companion that you resonate with. You're like, oh, you know what? If any of these companions, I click.
Allah
If I can look at this companion, see what he went through, and this applies to me. So this approach where you cover the stories in the Quran, because even the prophets as well, a lot of the stories, they relate to different people. So if you're rich, you've got a lot of wealth, look at Sulaiman.
Yeah,
Now, okay, you're poor, you're sick, look at Ayub.
Allah Akbar.
You're giving da'wah, look at Yunus alayhi salam.
Allah Akbar.
Okay, you're giving da'wah and people are not accepting your da'wah, look at Nuh alayhi salam.
You're imprisoned. Look at Yusuf.
You're in prison,
alayhi
look
salam.
at Yusuf alayhi salam.
knowledge, you look at Musa.
Exactly.
knowledge,
Like
look at
people
Allah
don't know, like
Yeah, when
it
he went
comes
to Khidr.
seeking
Yeah.
knowledge,
Yes.
Yeah.
Musa was really one of the most impactful, examples of the extent that one will go
No.
to acquire knowledge.
Yeah,
Subhanallah.
Allah
You
Akbar.
understand?
Subhanallah.
So this is what makes Salafiyya.
Yeah, Allah
No.
Akbar.
You know what I'm saying?
Allah
Is an inscription to those that preceded us.
Akbar. Yeah.
And they're not things, like, we have to clarify. These things they're using, it's not that it's baseless. And if you
Nah,
find the
it-
people of desire is focusing on the stories of the companions, like for example, Anwar al-Awlaki has done.
Yeah.
He became in prominence
popular,
for,
yeah, he
for
came
what?
popular
For
for
talking about Khalid bin Walid and the companions. صح? We're not going to say that this doesn't have a basis. As a matter of fact, this is from our deen. Accountable. Allah says in the Quran, in many places in the Quran, Allah talks about أحسن القصص. Okay, and why Allah has related these stories, and then we can ban تلك من أنباء الغيب نوحيها إليك. So
Make sure you translate the ayat, huh?
Allah talked in the Quran. Allah talked in the Quran about the benefits of stories. Okay, and the effect that it has, and why Allah has mentioned so many stories in the Quran. So it's not that it doesn't have a basis. I think the problem is, and Allah knows best, is that a lot of the students, they went to Jamia Islamiyya or other institution, and they sought knowledge with the scholars in certain circumstances, yes,
Certain ways.
certain ways, but then they want to export that to their community exactly the way they've learned it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which that doesn't work
And
that way.
it's not using hikmah.
It's not using hikmah.
And I'm not talking about nobody particularly, but I'm saying generally speaking, you can't
It's like
take.
copying and pasting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't do that. You can't take a scholar who's giving lessons in front of tullab al-ilm
Yeah,
and teaching them in a certain way,
Yeah.
and then take it back and
do
then
the same thing.
Teach the 9 to 5 Muslim the same exact way.
Yeah.
It's
To give you an
difficult.
example,
It's
perfect
difficult.
example, one of the masajid I used to be an imam at, they brought one of the students over and they said, I mean, the shura, the people in charge of the masjid, they said to this student that, look, this masjid has just been open for a couple of months. We have a lot of people praying in the masjid, and a lot of them are from a Hanafi background, and when we see them pray, even the ruku', they're not getting up, and there are a lot of pillars. From the pillars of the salah, they're not being implemented. Come and teach the people how to pray. Okay, so this student of knowledge, he came, and he said, all right, I'm going to teach them. What did he teach? Bulugh al-Maram, explanation of Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan.
Subhanallah.
Okay, a year went by, yes, and they still haven't started salah. They're still on
La
tahara.
hawla wa la quwwata illa billah.
2 lectures on how to recognize when Fajr starts, Maghrib starts, Dhuhr starts, and literally after a whole year, you're still on tahara. I mean,
Akhi, that's-
still a whole year, they have not fulfilled the pillars of salah.
Akhi, that's a disconnect, bro. I
That's
mean,
a
if someone
complete
is doing something like that, the talib, you're disconnected. You're not
Completely.
living with the people who are in front of you.
Yeah.
But with that being said, ikhwa, we need to move on.
Yeah,
Time
yeah.
is of the essence,
Yes,
and Dawah is coming up. So let's move on. Jazakallah khair, because I think, again, your story resonates in a lot of different ways, especially when it comes to seeking knowledge, because all these different, you could say, cycles that you went through of your life, phases, Allah tested you with, and you went through, is you could see that you continued the same thing, which was seeking knowledge, focusing on Quran and Sunnah, and then giving da'wah with that which you know. So may Allah Ta'ala reward you.
If I can just add the main takeaway, sorry, I know we went over time, but please, to summarize everything for the audience, for anyone that's watching this, that's listening to this, I say to you, if we look at the story of our brother Amir bin Ta'ala, protect him. Yes.
Ameen.
If there's anything you want to take away from this, is that seek knowledge no matter what circumstances you're on.
Allah Akbar.
Why? Because our brother, alhamdulillah, Allah has guided him to Islam. One of the first things he's done is try to seek knowledge, and he continued doing that, and he went through so many different circumstances. If you think that you're too busy for seeking knowledge, or maybe the background, whatever it may be, yes, always seek knowledge, never stop seeking knowledge, and take a lesson from those, look, they have
Yeah,
actually sought knowledge in all
Yeah,
circumstances.
I just want to say one other thing, just to expound. You know, don't set the barometer for seeking knowledge so high.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people think when you seek knowledge, you have to be a student of knowledge.
Yeah, you are.
You know, but Allah says save yourself and save your family.
Mm-hmm.
So knowledge being sought starts with teaching those in your house.
Yeah, 100%.
You know,
100%.
I'm the imam of my house.
Yeah.
You are.
I'm not the imam of no masjid.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
I'm just your brother Amir, your brother who's in dire need of Allah's mercy
Allah.
every single second I breathe,
Allah
right?
Akbar, yeah.
So don't set the barometer so high.
That actually
Yeah.
brings me back to what Sheikh Muhammad Ramzan was saying. Remember, I mentioned it a few podcasts ago.
Yeah.
He was saying if people were to implement what you're saying right now, focus on yourself,
Yeah.
then focus on your family. If everyone did that on a small scale, guess what? You and now your neighbor who's also doing the same thing, you guys can work together now. You're
Absolutely.
cooperating. Then you got a community. Then you got an environment. Then
Yeah.
you might have a city. Then you might have a country.
Yeah.
Like this is how it spreads.
That's how it starts.
Start
man.
small,
Yeah.
small, and it grows and it grows and it grows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Allah Akbar.
That's also tarbiyah.
So moving on with that, we had a few questions from last week's podcast that we want to connect to, and actually, it's some of them actually tie into what we were talking about just now, which was seeking knowledge. The first question was regarding note taking methods when reading and listening to scholars, and I think this is important. You can see it on the board, right? You can see it on the screen. It's important to deal with this one because obviously this week we have Sheikh Salih Usaimi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala. He's going to be starting his Dawah in a few next few days. So may Allah Ta'ala
May Allah
put
bless
barakah
it.
and bless it.
I don't,
Yes.
know how, I don't know how you're gonna address this question.
That
is,
I think the best way to address this is just from experience because I don't think there's one direct answer.
It's a massive
So,
topic. It's
yeah,
literally,
it's a massive topic, but also a lot of it deals with a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
Your method in taking notes can be completely different than my method in taking notes.
No.
Yeah.
So and also it depends on who's teaching.
Yeah.
So for example, Sheikh Fawzan, he teaches you can jot down simple things and you get it.
Yeah.
You get him. He's talking very slow. You can grasp the concept. But Sheikh Salih Usaimi's teaching, he's usually going pretty fast, and it's all almost like a book in itself, the way he's explaining.
In detail, yeah.
So you need a lot more space to write. And me personally, in answering this question, I find it, first off, two things. First, know who you're taking knowledge from.
No, sorry.
Which scholar it is. Because if you don't, depending on the scholar has a different technique, a different style. Also, me, I like to write a lot of notes. So if I'm doing something like right now, I'll give you an example. Sheikh Saleh Usaimi is teaching Umdat al-Ahkam. If you're going through Umdat al-Ahkam, I got my book with a whole bunch of lines in it. So it gives the nas, it gives like the text of the Umdat al-Ahkam, then it gives the lines so you can just write. Plus, I use different colors. So my pen might have 4 colors, 3 colors on it. I'm writing one color, with, for example, let's say mufradat, different words.
Yeah.
They connect to the topic that he's explaining. Another one with maybe ahkam, rulings. Yeah. Another one with, just miscellaneous.
Yeah.
So you got to develop your own method. I personally believe in taking notes.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe you guys have.
No, you have to. I mean, the only way you can, like the scholars, they mention that when you go fishing, you have to. I mean, there's no other way for you to keep hold of that fish unless you rein it in.
These are your tools, yeah.
It's just gonna. I mean, that's the only way to preserve knowledge. But the point I would love to make is that the importance of reading the matan before going to the dars.
Yeah.
Okay,
so that helps out tremendously when taking notes.
Yeah, helps tremendously.
Yeah.
And also, please, what's gonna happen is you're gonna start the dars. Sheikh is gonna talk. You might lose your focus for a moment. Halfway through the dars, Shaitan might say to you, "It's all right. You're gonna revisit the voice recording. You can take notes later."
Yeah,
that will never happen. Listen to me, it won't happen. I'm telling you, it will not happen. You are not gonna revisit and listen to it again.
Except for those who Allah SWT just happens to have mercy on.
That's the exception to the rule.
That's the exception to the rule. The base is that you're not going to be able to get back to it.
You're not going to get back to it.
Yeah.
So whatever you manage to take notes, you manage to write down, that's what you have. Also, if you stop taking notes halfway through the class, know that the rest is.
Also, watch what happens when you start not taking notes. You're going to see your attention starts to fly.
Yes.
If you're taking notes and you're following along, you're looking for every word to make sure you understand.
Nah.
Once you stop taking notes, okay, here comes the phone.
Yeah.
Here comes, I forgot, I got to do this when I get home.
Yeah.
Oh, make sure I stop past the shop.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You start getting mixed up with a whole bunch of different things.
No. And another important point, you gave 2, I'll give one more.
Yeah, Fadla.
Which is that, and they mentioned this, they actually done a study on it. I mean, there's a book. Really, I mean, if you read this book, it will really teach you how to take notes. It's called How to Take Smart Notes. By this, I think, Swedish guy called Sonka Arons. It introduces a whole different. It introduces a whole different universe to you when it comes to taking notes, right? You could read that book. But I'll tell you one thing, which is they've done a study whereby there are 2 sets of students, college students, that were taking notes, and they compared between those who were literally transcribing the professor's words and those who were kind of like summarizing the professor's words. And when they compared the 2, turned out that those who were summarizing the professor's notes had better understood and could better remember what the lesson was about, as opposed to those that were actually transcribing his words. So when it comes to taking notes, it's not about writing what the sheikh says word for word.
Exactly.
Don't fall into that trap, because this is actually a much easier thing to do, and is a lazy way of taking notes.
Yes.
Just write what he said. Rather, it should be about try to summarize what he said in your own words to the best of your ability, because that act itself of summarizing his words, that's learning.
Exactly.
That's comprehending. That's understanding.
Exactly.
And that's what allows that benefit to stick.
Yeah.
And for you to even understand later, because at the end of the day, like they say, you have to help out your future self. Don't think about yourself today.
100%.
Think about your future self. When you go back to read those notes again tomorrow, you have to optimize for your future self. You have to optimize for Muhammad a year from now. So if you write it in a way whereby it just doesn't make sense, it's in the sheikh's words, you're not going to understand that. But when you write it in your own words, what you have understood, then when you revisit that a year from now, you understand it. These are your words.
It was in your words. It was the way you understood it.
Yes.
Now, we don't have too much time, so I'm going to brief through these questions. The second question I'm going to put directed to Amir and then allow you to start with it, which is, how do you give da'wah to family members who have incorrect aqidah? In our situation, it would be non-Muslims.
Yeah, definitely.
This is such an important topic, Barakallahu Fik. So I'm going to let you start off with it, and then Muhammad, I want you to talk about as far as the aspect of giving it to members who might have a wrong aqidah.
No. Jazakallah khair. So, for me, I've learned, that it's essential to start with things that you agree with. Because when you have an abundance of agreements, when you slip into the things that you disagree about, it won't be so, tumultuous. You know what I'm saying? Because I think people, when you're dealing, once again, it goes with zeal. Zeal makes you want to tell your parents and relatives
everything you learned.
Allah, if you don't say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, you going to Jahannam.
No.
That's what zeal wants you to say, right? But when you start with the Anbiya, especially with non-Muslims, preferably Christians, they believe in Ibrahim. They know the story of Ibrahim.
Sahih.
They know the story of Musa alayhi salam.
No.
Because before you get to Isa, Isa is a very sensitive matter.
Very,
So you can always start with those things, and once you get in agreement, stop talking. Because sometimes, once again, zeal makes you like, oh, they took that.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get them to take something else. But, you think about it when people say, I know the Muslim for 3 years. You ever heard a person, the Muslim friend for 3 years? And the first thing come to my mind, you're not Muslim? So that means y'all engaging in conversations.
But it's not resonating.
It's not resonating. Or y'all agreeing in more batil and more shirk and more, more things that cater to your way of living. Because if you was talking to a Muslim for 3 years who was firm on the religion, it's either you going to get away from him or you probably going to accept Islam.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like my advice, and just, I don't want to take too much time, is always try to start with agreements. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. They're not going to disagree.
Yeah.
Even the Quran does
Yeah.
that. The Quran mentions Rububiyyah in order to establish Uluhiyyah.
Exactly.
But when you're talking to non-Muslims, they won't deny that there's one facilitator, one arranger of all the affairs of creation. They won't deny that. Identifying who that creator is, that's another subject. But if you can agree that there's only one, that's a great start, right? Then once you establish that, you can agree that, okay, cool, if he's the facilitator of all of these things, isn't it his right and his right alone to be worshipped, revered, reference should be so? They'll say, we still haven't identified with who this creator is yet.
Especially, and I was going to add to that, I'm sorry to cut you off, especially the way you're talking about going about it as far as connected to the Anbiya. So as you're going along, you're teaching this Tawheed of which what the Anbiya used to worship.
With
all
the
of them.
What they used to call to.
Yeah, what they used to call to.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you have to be able to agree. A conversation can't start with debate, disagreements, because it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
And now what happened is, down the line, you may actually make some very valid and strong points, but they're going to be rejected now because the origin of these conversations have been so,
toxic and problematic.
This what you point wallah is so important because a lot of people on YouTube they fall into this trap when it comes to debating with non-Muslims. It becomes like a war. Okay, look at your Christianity, look at your Bible, it's got so many contradictions. And I actually fell into that trap myself. I remember when I first started practicing, started going into those Ahmed Didat videos and the likes. And there's this, I think it was Nigerian classmate of mine who was Christian, and because Ahmed Didat's got this like book called the Combat Guide or something like that. And it's literally basically a list of all the contradictions in the Bible. So instead of going to him, calling him to Islam, you're just attacking Christianity. Yeah, your Bible said this and this and this and this shows it. Wallah, I remember the guy, he said to me, he said, listen, don't talk to me about religion. So that was youth with that zeal. So same thing on YouTube. You find people debating non-Muslims, ex-Muslims, and they're kind of like, okay, they're thinking to themselves, I'm catering to my Muslim audience. Right? But what you have to know is you're on YouTube. You have Muslims watching this. You have non-Muslims watching this. This is not how you give da'wah to non-Muslims. You don't look at Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Wafd Najran came to him.
No.
Story for another day. Right? A lot of lessons to be learned from that when these whole group of Christians came to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he dealt with them and how he gave them da'wah. So story for another day, inshallah.
Allahu Akbar. So Jazakallah khair, passing it on to you. As far as dealing with family members, maybe you went through something like this, or you know some people who've gone through something like this.
We all have definitely.
So
no doubt.
when dealing with family members who have a wrong aqidah, but they're Muslim, but they have a wrong aqidah. Maybe they're not praying. Maybe they, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, they might be inclined towards extremism. Okay, maybe you're from a Muslim household where your parents are maybe Sufi or the likes. How do you deal with it? Well, الأهم قبل المهم.
صحيح.
That's really what it comes down to. Okay,
Most important
focus
things
on the
before
most important things first before the important. So, for example, if it's from a Sufi background you're from, please don't debate with them about either put your hands under your chest or on your chest. إيش فيك? Don't talk to them about that. Don't talk to them about, for example, can the dead in their graves here? Because that's what they like to do. You know, I promise you, if you debate with a Sufi who's got a little bit of, if he's got a little bit of, that has been trained a little bit on how to debate Wahhabis, the moment you talk to him about not calling upon other than Allah, he's gonna go with you down that rabbit hole of do the dead in their graves here or not. And now they want to discuss with you small issues, yes, while ignoring the bigger ones. So do not allow someone to drag you into these, I don't know, alleyways, if you like.
You gotta control the conversation.
Yeah, bring them out to the open. You know, you are upon the sunnah, the ark. It's like the ark of Noah, صح?
No.
So you see the ark is big, صح? The ark needs to see. But if you take a big, massive ark to a small, if you like, river, what's going to happen? It's going to get stuck. Don't allow them to take you there. Keep them out in the open sea. In the ocean. Keep them in the ocean and talk about the big things and drown them with adillah and ayat and ahadith until they got no other reason to give up and come onto the ark of the sunnah. So focus on tawheed. Tawheed أولا. If it's a Sufi background. Okay, if it's not a Sufi background, maybe it's a background of extremism or the likes, then focus on those ahadith. And this is what I used to do, and this is what you should do. Yes, which is, and we mentioned this before. Don't go into this happened and the ruler did this. La, just stick to the hadith.
Stick to the usul.
Said.
I want to say one thing, even though I never had family members who Aqidah was twisted, but what I just to add to even what I said about agreements, I learned a lot of times that things that you agree becomes a proof against what you disagree. So even when you're dealing with relatives that actually have twisted aqidah, if you go into the things that you know that they have a clear understanding of, ultimately, if you press rewind, press play, and let them hear themselves, when they start going into the contradicting things, it's like they refute themselves.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? Whether they come out clearly and say, subhanAllah was, what I meant, or like, oh, look what had happened. But the reality of it is, you've done your job. If you can allow them to hear what they affirm, and then match that with, when it goes south. I would say really it comes down to one thing, which is establish first and foremost what the reference point is. Because it's the same way. It's the same way the ulama of the past used to refute atheists. They use something that they would agree against them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we take from our scholars and the people who preceded us, and we take that same application, because affirmation is always going to outweigh contradiction and things like that. Because once you affirm, you know what I'm saying, I have a conversation with a person about their race. It's like, you black, right? Yeah, I'm black. You know what I'm saying? So now you can't be white. You know what I'm saying? There's no way you can keep sitting up here arguing about being white. It's
truth can't mix with falsehood.
Exactly. You just affirm.
Establish the reference point, because now you're going to enter into a conversation with the individual. He's going to make claims, you're going to make claims. Before you start the argument, or before you start the usul, wait a minute. If me and you disagree now, okay? You say to me, this is halal, this is haram. I say to you, it's allowed, it's not allowed. What's our reference point? Quran and Sunnah. فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ. Allah says that فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ, by your Lord, they do not truly believe until they make you a judge, O Muhammad, in that which they disagree. ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ, and then they don't find any sort of aversion towards that which you have judged, O Muhammad. وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا, and they submit with a complete submission. This is the reference point. Okay, talking about the Muslim ruler, for example. Okay, you say whatever you like, and I say whatever I like, no problem. But when me and you disagree, what's our reference point? How are we going to judge who's right and who's wrong?
Sahih.
The hadith, the Quran, and the Sunnah upon understanding the Salaf. If you agree on that, then we continue. Then what's going to happen is, I'll tell you what's going to happen. They're going to go left. They're going to go right. Always rein the conversation back in. Don't follow them.
They're going to wiggle.
Don't follow them. Come back. Bring the conversation back to Quran, Sunnah, and Sahaba. As long as you control yourself. And this is, I think, the biggest problem. we let emotions overtake us. La, as long as you stay in your place and you control yourself, and you are someone who keeps one line of speech,
Yeah.
then the person eventually either will give up or he will accept.
جادلهم بالتي هي أحسن.
No.
Argument with them in a better way. Last question, and then we'll go into the final segment. And I'm going to summarize the question because I don't have it in front of me.
The fifth one we're not going to cover, right?
Not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now. We'll take it. Plus, it was answered in my Telegram channel yesterday anyway.
Mumtaz.
So the final question was dealing with something connected from last week's podcast, was dealing with waswas.
Yeah.
So I'm going to summarize it. What he was saying was, generally speaking, yes, you guys touched on everything that pretty much he was dealing with in that waswas conversation. However, now he's facing a new issue, which is now he's finding that when he goes to the bathroom, he sees that he has waswas. Am I actually clean? Did I actually do what I was supposed to be doing upon me?
Feel something comes out after he leaves the bathroom.
Exactly. So I wanted to start by answering that question by just saying the same applies for that, which is to ignore it.
No.
Okay. Now I know you have some things that you prepared for this, so I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Yeah. So no, I just wanted to share with you. It's a beautiful clip by Sheikh Abdul Salam al-Shwayr. And Sheikh Abdul Salam al-Shwayr, from our scholars, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, he really deals with this waswas a lot. Hafidhahullah. And I get so many questions regarding this, which is that specifically for the brothers, when they leave the bathroom, after leaving the bathroom, they feel like something has come out. They left the bathroom 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes later, they feel like something might have come out, and then this turns into a waswas.
Will lead you to doubt that you're not clean.
Do I have wudu?
Yeah,
have not wudu?
exactly.
Let me go double check. Let me go to the toilet. Let me. Or maybe it came out, it dried out. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So there's actually a narration from Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, that mentions that when Shaykh Abdul Salam al-Shwayr, he gives you advice. He says in that clip, I'm going to summarize it very quickly.
And I'll post it on the screen as well so people can see it.
Now, first thing is wait a little bit. Wait a little bit. Wait for things to come out. Okay. Then obviously do your istinja, wash yourself. Then you take some water, yes, and you literally wet your undergarments, and you wet your private parts. So now everything's wet. Then you come out. Now, if you feel like something came out or not, you can ignore it because you'll think it must be the water. My underpants are already wet. Why do we say this? Because the audience might ask, or the person might ask, yeah, but what if something did come out? My salah won't be accepted. That it is forgiven. Anta ma'fu. You're not held accountable for that.
No.
You're only held accountable, and this is what people don't understand. You're only held accountable when it comes to not removing najasa. If it's najasa that you can actually see or you can smell, only then are you held accountable.
No.
Something that's on your clothes that you don't know about, it is not going to break your salah. It is not going to affect your salah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying salah, and then he took off his shoes. And then all the companions took off their shoes. I mean, that itself is a lesson. You know how they followed him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then after salah, he turned around and asked them why they took off their shoes. And they said, because you took off your shoes. But he said, no, Jibreel just came to me and told me there was some najasa on my shoe that he didn't know about. So that's why he took it off. What do we benefit from this? That the first part of the salah is valid.
Yes.
The Prophet did not go back and pray all over again because he didn't know about that.
Exactly.
Same thing here. Unless you know for a fact that there's najasa on your clothes, then the rule is your clothes are clean.
No.
Simple as.
And even in that advice as well, you're building off yaqeen.
Which
helps fight these waswas that people are dealing with.
Exactly.
People dealing with waswas because they're like all over the place. They're uncertain.
Yes.
But if you're building upon yaqeen, like the Sheikh said, wait until everything comes out.
Yeah.
Then clean yourself. Then put water. You built on the fact that you are clean.
Yes.
That's the asl.
Because you've cleaned yourself.
So don't give a lot of thought to these waswas, these things that are causing you to get away from that.
No.
And then you're leading shak, like the principle. What?
Yeah.
Al-yaqeen ma yazulu bi-shak.
No.
That which is established and firmly understood is not erased by way of doubts.
Yeah. And this is obviously, this is theoretically, it's got so many practical implications.
Of course.
And the reason I wanted to share this, because this is now practical advice. Akhi, you asked, what can I do about it? Yes. If you haven't understood it from last podcast, then here you have practical advice.
No.
Sit a bit longer, wash yourself, wet your underpants, wet your private parts, walk out, and then if something comes out, there is no way for you to know if it's najasa or not. So don't worry, brother, continue praying salah. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, jazakallah khair. Allah yafadakum. Tayyib, so the final segment, and I think this ties in very nicely with everything we spoke about already, as far as the brother's story, as far as what he's doing now in Dawah, and even in the prisons, you know, connecting with the different inmates, to now connecting with the youth, and then dealing with different things in our communities, which is what is or us explaining true Islamic brotherhood, because all these different things, when you look at them, they're built upon Muslims having ta'awun with one another. Yeah. And they can only be built, a society can only be structured upon, like the Prophet said, the Muslims is like one body. So having that one body, which is healthy, can only be built with strong brotherhood, right? Yeah. So I personally had 2 hadith, and they're both from Arba'in Nawawiyah, which you just said Sheikh Abdul Razak told you to memorize.
One of my favorite hadith too.
Exactly. So if we go through that hadith, and then I'll just, you guys just throw in whatever you guys got with it, and we'll just build off of that, inshallah ta'ala, for this final segment. So right here, these hadith, like if you look at 35th hadith in Arba'in Nawawiyah, it deals with a lot of things which a Muslim should stay away from, because obviously as Muslims we have a way we should conduct ourselves. If we conduct ourselves in a good manner, then khalas, we gel together, we work together, we build each other up. However, there are things which spoils that and will cause the goal to be reduced, to be lost. And I think this is what we see nowadays. It weakens us. And now we have people even claiming Quran and Sunnah, benefiting from the same scholars, talking about the same topics for the most part, yet we have something there. What is that khalal that we have, that shortcoming? Allah knows best, but I think it goes back to these type of things. So let's go back and read the hadith. So in hadith 35, al-hadith al-khamis wa thalathun, it was narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu that the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تحاسدوا ولا تناجشوا ولا تباغضوا ولا تدابروا ولا يبيع بعضكم على بيع بعض وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا المسلم أخو مسلم لا يظلمه ولا يخذله ولا يكذبه ولا يحقره إلى الآخر الحديث. And I'm going to read the English so that everyone can understand it. So it says in Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrated the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not be envious of one another. Do not outbid one another. Do not hate one another. Do not keep away from one another. And one should and no one should interfere with the transactions of another. You should be slaves of Allah ta'ala. Kunu ibadallahi ikhwanan. Be slaves of Allah ta'ala, brothers to one another. A Muslim is a brother to another Muslim. He should not be unjust to him, nor desert him, nor lie to him, nor despise him. Piety is here. At-taqwa ha huna. Right? And yashiru ila sadrihi thalatha marrat. And he points to his chest 3 times. It is sufficient for a Muslim, for a person, as a sin that he holds his brother in some type of contempt. All the things of the Muslim are sacred for one to another. His wealth, his blood, his wealth, and his honor. And that is in Sahih Muslim. So this is the first hadith dealing with the things that we should stay away from. These are the prohibitions, clearly lined out in the hadith. So before I go forth, you guys got anything on that?
Oh, so much on that.
I think in this day and time, with all of the things that plague this worldly life, these things become far more challenging. Especially in the West. And I put emphasis on that, especially in the West, because the barometer set for success in the West gets confusing sometimes for Muslims when we have to adhere to what Allah and His Messenger prescribe as success for the Muslims. So when you look at that, there's really nothing to be envious of. You know what I'm saying, other than a person memorizing more Quran. Or whether a person, you know what I'm saying.
And as we're going to see, that actually turns into ghibta. If somebody, and that's like the permissibility a way of being envious. Meaning you see somebody, ghibta only comes in 2. Envy comes in 2 things, right?
The good envy.
Good envy, right?
For a lack of better term in English is, but in Arabic, obviously, it's got different meanings. But the good envy, because we have to define as what envy is. Envy is, or the bad envy, the one Prophet said and warned against here, is the one whereby you want this blessing to be taken away from your brother.
Exactly.
And that's the thing.
So I want to just finish that. So the ghibta, what the envy that is permissible is in 2 matters only. One is seeing a person with a lot of wealth and he's spending it for the sake of Allah ta'ala. So you have this envy. It's not because you want it to be removed. This is why it's called ghibta. It's something separate. But you wish you could do the same thing. You want that same reward. Same thing is a person who has a lot of knowledge,
Yeah.
a lot of wisdom as well.
Yeah.
He's using it in order to call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's using it to make his decisions based upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated.
No.
You don't want that to be removed from him, but you just you wish you could have it for yourself because you see the khair. It's the only time it's allowed.
And for this reason, and a lot of people they don't know this, but for this reason, the scholars they mention that unfortunately envy is rife amongst the students of knowledge.
Yeah.
Because the students of knowledge, they're dealing with the greatest of blessings, the blessing of knowledge, people being guided. So shaitan can easily come through that bab when it comes to a student of knowledge and make that student of knowledge envious of his fellow brother who's also giving da'wah. When he is doing better, he's getting more views, he's getting a bigger audience. It's very easy for the shaitan to come and be like, well, I wish he didn't. Subhanallah, as a student of knowledge, particularly very dangerous bab for us. One of the most dangerous things we need to
100%. And envy, subhanallah, envy, I'm sorry, is one of the great, like you said, one of the greatest causes that happens between the Muslims. But also, it's the same thing that caused Iblis to disbelieve.
No.
I mean, it's the same thing that caused the Jews to not accept the truth when the Prophet ﷺ came with the truth. So envy, it keeps you from what? Accepting the truth. And it also causes division automatically.
Absolutely.
No.
SubhanAllah. So moving on, it says
I mean, this hadith, like you mentioned, it mentions all of those things that will affect the Muslim brotherhood that we need to stay away from. And I remember our Shaykh Sulaiman Ruhaili, hafidhahullah, in London on the way, I think I was on the way to the airport. He mentioned that, subhanAllah, he said that it is as if, we know that one of the goals, objectives of the shaitan is to cause disunity amongst the Muslims, especially Ahl Sunnah. That's one of his objectives, in order to weaken the Salafi call and the da'wah to Salafiyah. So the Shaykh said, as if some brothers are saying to the shaitan, wait this one out, wait, chill out, I'll take care of this. It's like as if some brothers, the way they conduct themselves, is like they took it on themselves as a responsibility to separate
and do the work of the shaitan.
And do the work of the shaitan.
So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إياكم والحسد فإن الحسد يأكل الحسنات كما تأكل النار حطب أو قال العشب. Yani beware of envy, for envy consumes the good deeds, just as fire consumes the firewood or the grassland. So going on, that's the first part of the hadith. That's the first word of the hadith. Now we have what? Do not outbid one another. Meaning, do not have a transaction with the brother, and now you want to step on his toes, so to say. Now you don't even want to, not because you want to buy the thing, because you don't want your brother to have it.
Tanajus is sort of is an arrangement that two people make, whereby me and you, okay, we're bidding, right? Me, you, and Abdul Hamid. There's a bid happening for a nice car. Allah give us all of us nice cars.
Nice riding.
So nice riding beast. Yeah, nice riding beast. So I basically, I know the guy who's selling the car. You're selling the car, and I know you. Me and you are friends, right? But Abdul Hamid's also bidding for it. So I come into the auction and I'm bidding higher and higher, not because I want to buy the car, just so that Abdul Hamid ends up paying more and you get a high price for your riding beast. This is the najus.
And another example is that, as Sheikh Fawzan, he mentioned that even in that same transaction, for example, let's say your brother does get it and he gets it at a good deal.
Yeah.
But you come in and you say, that's foolish. I got that way cheaper.
Yeah.
I got this way cheaper. You should have went here. You should have went to this place. And guess what? It causes that sadness in your brother's heart. And he starts feeling like regret. Like I should have did this way.
Instead of saying Allahumma barik, may Allah put barakah in you.
Exactly. So now in this situation, you've caused that transaction to feel like it's spoiled. Right? So this is also another way of najis. And the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, دَعُ النَّاسِ يَرَزَقُ اللَّهُ بَعْدُهُم مِّن بَعْضٍ. Leave the people. Allah will provide for some of them over others. So you shouldn't go in his transaction and start, causing some type of grief for him. So the next thing is what? And do not forsake him. Right? Do not hate one another. Do not hate one another. Yeah, we said that one. Yeah, do not forsake him, right? So forsaking him is turning away from him. Turning away from him, not being there to defend him. For example, let's say something's happening in a majlis, right? He's being mentioned. He's being mentioned with evil. And guess what? You just let it ride.
SubhanAllah.
Where's you just forsake your brother. This is a form of
forsaking him. The
forsaking
Prophet said, من ذب عن عرض أخيه المسلم بالغيب ذب الله عن وجهه يوم القيامة نار جهنم. وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Whoever defends his Muslim brother's honor in his absence, yani someone's making ghiba of him, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep away the fire from his face on the day of judgment. Subhanallah. Shaykh Salman Ruhaili, he mentions that people in this regard are of 3 levels when it comes to this. Dhib an akhi al-Muslim.
No.
First level is the one that he stands up for his brother and says, La kadabta, this is not true. We know nothing but khair of our brother. This person, he comes under this hadith.
No.
Okay. The second type of individual, the second level, is the one that maybe he doesn't speak up, but he gets up and leaves the majlis.
He leaves the majlis, yeah.
He leaves the majlis. He doesn't sit there and listen to this happening. Okay.
As Allah Ta'ala commanded us to do.
Nah.
Don't sit in these different majalis in
No.
which this haram is taking place.
Nah. And then the third level, and the first one they mention is sabiq bil khairat, the other one is muqtasid. At least he's done what's up upon him. But then the third level is the one who sits there and listens to the ghiba and doesn't say anything. Now this one is 2 types, the Shaykh says. Still, the Shaykh says 2 types. You've got the one who is forced. He can't do anything about it. Okay, he's in a situation whereby he can't speak up. Okay, but he hates it from his heart. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ.
Yeah.
That's the lowest level of iman. But as far as the one that is concerned, who can actually do something about it, or he can get up but he doesn't, he continues sitting, then he is exactly the same as the one who's done ghiba. You are no different and no better than the one who's done ghiba of his brother.
Yeah.
And another narration of the hadith mentions من ذب عن لحم أخيه المسلم.
And what situation would I mean there will even be where you're compelled to sit there and keep listening to ghiba and namima? I mean, I'm trying to think about it like as far as, because this happened recently. Remember, some brother had came up and he was talking about how he was in a majlis and Sheikh Fulan was being mentioned, and then some of the tullab, and I was like, what did you do? He's like, I just was quiet and whatever the case may be. I said, akhi, I mean, okay, you couldn't say nothing, no problem.
This is Sheikh. Don't forget, he was talking about our Sheikh.
He was talking about a Sheikh.
His own Sheikh.
Exactly, who he was benefiting from. He came, we met him at the lesson.
Yeah. So it's like some brothers were backbiting the Sheikh, saying bad thing about him.
Yeah.
So what did you do about it?
He's like, I just sat there and, I said, akhi, you didn't get up and leave.
He said, I didn't want to cause a fuss. He didn't want to cause a fuss.
Cause a fuss? They're causing a fuss. Aslan. This is haram. Ma yanbaghi.
Subhanallah.
Do you fear them or you fear Allah Tabarak Ta'ala?
Now what causes someone to do that obviously is nothing else than cowardness, number one.
Yeah.
And basically just, really not understanding the danger of this. Thinking that they are not held accountable for what other people say. Wallahi, you are. But if you're in that sitting and you don't do something about it, if you don't do one of these 3 things, then you're held accountable.
But some people actually think that they're bringing about some type of khair.
By being
quiet and say we're with the brothers and we're trying to bridge the gap.
I don't want to cause disunity.
And I don't want to cause disunity.
This is disunity.
Is disunity.
I'm talking about your Muslim brother is disunity.
Yeah, one of the concerns I would have with this particular matter is when one truly, loves the individual for the sake of Allah.
Yeah.
Cowardness is not something that would impede you
exactly
from defending a person's honor.
Exactly. 100%.
Because you might be, you could be reluctant in other matters. But this is someone that Allah loves and you love what Allah loves.
No.
You know what I'm saying? If that doesn't compel you enough to defend the honor of something or someone that Allah loves and you love Allah, then this should be a simple task to implement, as he mentioned, what the Sheikh said would be, praiseworthy in regards of defending this individual's
100%.
honor.
100%.
So yeah, that's that.
I think simple on paper, but in reality, and this is really where it comes down to. If you want to know the asl of all of this, is the statement of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam: "أوثق عرى الإيمان الموالاة في الله والمعاداة في الله والحب في الله والبغض في الله عز وجل." That the strongholds of iman, or the strongest indications of a person's iman, is his allegiance for the sake of Allah, disallegiance for the sake of Allah, love for the sake of Allah, and hatred for the sake of Allah. Now, how does that tie in what we're saying? This same individual who is sitting there, whilst his Muslim brother, who he supposedly loves for the sake of Allah, inshallah he does, when he's being quiet, let's ask him, how about those people that you don't just love them for the sake of Allah, but you love them for the dunya as well? Like your wife, your children, your parents. Absolutely. Would you be quiet? You wouldn't be quiet. Because these people now, there's other types of love, tabi'i, involved as well. Sahih. So this basically shows that it stems from a lack of iman and a lack of this stronghold, this level of iman whereby you truly love someone for the sake of Allah, to the extent that it's not a difference if somebody sits here backbiting Abdul Hamid or Amir or any of my other Muslim brothers, or if he's backbiting, my brother from my mother, or my father, or my wife, or my kids. The way that I would not accept that upon batil, I'm not going to accept it any other Muslim brother.
And actually, akhuwa al-imaniyya is stronger.
Absolutely.
And this is what ties all of it together.
No.
But the Prophet said, "At-taqwa ha huna."
Wallah.
Al-Muslim akhu Muslim. This connects it, showing that the Muslim in faith is stronger than that Muslim even by blood.
No.
But there's two things that I skipped for second part. We didn't go over a bughd type.
No.
So bughd, having hatred, right? Obviously, we know that which is desirable is the opposite. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. A person doesn't fully believe or truly believe until he wants for his brother that which he wants for himself. And the Prophet commands us to stay away from bughd, hatred. Sheikh Fawzan, he mentions about this. Some people, it's almost in their nature to, like we call them in our culture, we call it haters.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's almost in their nature that they have some type of inclination to hating that. But what he says is, in this situation, don't show it.
The least you can do.
The least you can do is not show it. You might have that hatred.
May Allah cure you.
May Allah cure you.
You know
It's
what?
something, and Sheikh Fawzan said some people are just born with this. Like
Yeah.
they just have it with them.
Yeah.
You know what? Though? I wanted to actually pose a question that I believe is also very prevalent amongst the Muslims. Now, sometimes you see your brother doing something openly that's displeasing to Allah. And we'll take that same scenario where you're sitting in a gathering where a person is speaking upon this open sin or this open sinner, right? At that point, defending the honor of someone who's pretty much squandered their own honor, you know, this scenario is something that I've found to be, you know, way more prevalent to where, you know, you can try to make an excuse, but obviously there's no excuse because the sin that's being performed is out openly, right?
Yeah. I mean, sorry, can we just get it straight? When you say the sin is out openly,
Yeah.
is
For
it?
example, I'll give you a clear example.
Yeah.
This is something I struggle with a lot in prison.
Yeah.
You know, you have brothers who were dealing with the hardship of being incarcerated. Sometimes they were result of either gambling, you know, using, you know, drugs, making makeshift alcohol, stuff like that. So this type of blemish is something that becomes known because prison is really no escape. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really do anything.
Everybody knows what someone else
Everyone knows. And then for the Muslims, you know, those who are in opposition of Islam can't wait to
No.
bring these type of things out into the open.
Yeah.
Yo, Akhi, I just seen your brother.
Yeah.
I just seen your brother. I just seen your brother. So what happens now is some brothers used to process this as a blemish on Islam. You
No.
understand? And then they will partake in, you know, this
Talking
the
about it.
deficiency that this individual had.
Yani talking bad about it.
Talking bad about him. Or
Okay.
even chiming in.
Yeah.
You know, like, all right, well, I mean, you know, that brother, yeah, he don't even come to Jumu'ah. It's
Yeah,
like,
but Akhi,
now you start exposing other things that are not known.
No, but I mean, there's one thing we have to clarify here, which is that we have to differentiate between two things. The fact that this brother has a shortcoming and the fact that it's even known still does not give someone the right to talk about that and hold him at
Exactly.
fault. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, like the companion asked, he said, إن كان فيه ما تقول فقد اغتبته.
No.
If that what you're saying about this individual is true and he actually is a gambler, then you have performed غيبة. وإن لم يكن فيه, if it's not something that he does, then فقد بهته. Then you have slandered him and you have lied about him. Now, when is it then permissible to talk about a Muslim, his shortcomings? It's only permissible, not if it's out in the open. It's permissible if it's for maslaha shar'iyya, for religious benefit. In other words, not just is he gambling, he's convincing others to join him. Now this is a problem. It's not just that he fell into the sin. It's not just that he's known for gambling or committing zina or drinking khamar, and he's something that he feels bad about. Rather, he's actually out there promoting it, telling people, ta'al, take part. Here we are allowed to backbite him and warn against him for the greater good.
Yeah, you're warning the Muslims so they don't fall into that same situation.
No.
And that used to always kind of be the case.
No.
For example, like with the gambling thing.
Yeah.
You have a brother that might be running a fantasy football ticket.
Yeah.
So he's literally out there
Promoting it.
promoting it.
That's not ghibah. That's not
what I'm
ghibah.
saying. So
Yeah.
that's why I used to in those matters, you know, it used to be difficult to try to advise brothers not to partake in slandering the individual, but at the same time, you know, there's no honor really to defend at that point. So it's kind of a very sensitive situation.
You know, it's a matter of cultivating the people so
don't
they know.
contribute to it.
Yeah.
Okay, try not to contribute to that.
Yeah.
But at the same token, hate it in your heart.
Yeah,
You know,
of course.
and that used to be my advice a lot of times in that matter, because I used to struggle with it myself. Like, you know, like subhanAllah. And even sometimes when you used to see the Muslims engaging the non-Muslims more opposed to your brothers. That's something a lot of brothers used to struggle with as well, because it's like, it's a form of jealousy. Like, you my brother. Why you ain't over here with me? Like, why is you always over there with them? You know, and that also became something that, you know, and these are things that, you know what I'm saying, you might not really hear too much in the free world. Because, you know, we all moving, shaking, trying to, you know, seek our risk and take care of our families. But when you're in that proximity, there's a very heightened sense of need of brotherhood. Because there's no brotherhood that I've ever witnessed, wallahi, except from, you know, Allah's blessed and favored me with some beautiful brothers that, you know, I wouldn't trade in for nothing in the world. Which I have traded in a whole bunch of, you know, previous peers and so on and so forth. But it's like being in such a difficult situation, having a brother to lean on, having a brother that you can just consult and he understands because he's going through the same thing. I've seen in the prison system one of the most intense and meaningful levels of, you know, brotherhood being implemented. And, you know, and that was one of the things, no, not to digress, but that was one of the things that respect. Remember I said love, fear, and respect. The respect came from these guys who are ascribing themselves to a gang. They will turn on each other in a minute. In a minute. But they know the Muslims, we going on the bus together. We get transferred. I mean, I've been in a prison where it gets lit, and I mean, they break the whole Jamaat up. They send 5 over here, way over in California. They ship these guys way over here. It's like they break the whole Jamaat up.
Imaniya.
But you find but then you find other brothers there. That you've never seen before.
Other brothers there, and wallahi, the amazing part was 5 new ones get off the bus and come back. You know, so it's like, this is why these people used to, subhanAllah, I can get into that one all day. But it's like, brotherhood, I just want to say this in closing, because I think, for me in this subject, is, you know, brotherhood is what sustained, you know, my zeal for the deen. You know, Allah placed me, you know, in the bosom of some beautiful brothers. You know, like I said in the beginning, I'm honored to be here with you guys, because, you know, there's a certain type of euphoria you feel when you're in the presence of a Muslim and your hearts connect. You understand? And it becomes like a backdated love. Like, I haven't even known you that long. But it becomes like backdated. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like it's 10 years already on that connection when it's only been 10 months or 10 days. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I would urge Muslims to feed that, nurture that, cultivate that. Don't take that as a brief happening. That is a favor from Allah. 100%. When Allah places someone in your life, you know, Muslim, a believer who loves Allah, loves His Messenger, follows the Sunnah to the best of their ability. You understand? You can overlook so many things, but you can't overlook that connection. That
to add to that, let's try to finish this hadith so that we can talk about how to preserve what you're talking about.
Right,
preserve what you're talking about. So again, I was taken back by what Sheikh Fawzan said when he was asked this in the book, and as I'm reading, he's like, "Is it possible?" He's stating the question: "Is it possible for a person to remove that hatred?" And he answers with the answer I wasn't expecting, actually, where he says, "This is inborn in some people, you know, so this hatred." So a person who might be, you know, dealing with this disease of hatred for your brother, just don't show it. Don't show it. Don't spread it, etc. So going on to the next part of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. And this shows and breed brothers one to another upon piety. And this shows the issues mentioned previously are in direct effect to the brotherhood.
No.
Meaning, if you don't do them, you're corrupting this brotherhood. You know, if you don't uphold that, you don't stay away from hasad, you don't stay away from stepping on someone's transactions to the end of it. Then the Prophet says in the hadith, nor despise him, right? So don't look down on him. Don't be worried about his appearance, the wealth, his status, because he's a brother to Allah. He's a brother in Iman.
Or even
he's a Muslim.
The fact that you're guided to the Sunnah and Tawheed, and he isn't. Okay, look, we're not talking about the innovator who's promoting innovation, who the truth has been clarified to and is still not positive. We're not talking about that. We're talking about your average miskeen Muslim who hasn't been exposed to the Sunnah. He doesn't know about Tawheed. Maybe if he's from that kind of background, yes. Don't look down upon him and be like, oh, look, Allah guided me. He didn't guide him. La. Okay, that's why Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, يا الذين آمنوا لا تقولوا لمن ألقى إليكم السلام لست مؤمنا تبتغون عرض الحياة الدنيا. And then Allah says towards the end of the ayah, كذلك كنتم من قبل فمن الله عليكم فتبينوا. That's how you were before. But then Allah, He has blessed you with Iman.
Sahih.
So all of us have been there. All of us have been through that. So don't look down upon the individual and be like, oh, Allah, I'm sure Allah hasn't guided him because Allah doesn't love him. La ya akhi. So that's the sort of vibe some people they give, you know, subhanAllah. La ya akhi. You need to clarify too.
Yeah, when we finish this last part of this hadith, huh?
Yeah.
And then everyone else can go back and look at the shot of Sheikh Fawzan, because we're running close on time. This adhan's coming in now.
2 minutes.
So obviously these things in this hadith were the things you're supposed to stay away from.
Yeah.
Right? You stay away from them, it helps solidify the community in the Muslim brotherhood. Right? Not this. And then he also mentioned at the end of it, despising your Muslim brother. This is absolute evil. This is absolute evil. Holding your brother to contempt, looking down on him, having hate for him. This is the absolute evil. So going to the next hadith, and I'm gonna read it very quickly. I'm not gonna give too much ta'liqat on it because again, time is of the essence. So the hadith 36, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he mentioned that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever relieves a believer." So these are the things you're supposed to establish now. The other hadith was the things you stay away from. Now we're talking about things that are going to help actually aid that brotherhood. Whoever relieves a believer of this distress from the worldly distresses, Allah will relieve him of a distress from the distresses of the hereafter. He who brings ease to one's difficulty, Allah Ta'ala will bring ease to him in this world and in hereafter. He who conceals the shortcomings of his Muslim, Allah Ta'ala will conceal his shortcomings in this world and in hereafter. Allah Ta'ala helps his slave as long as he helps his brother. And adding to that last statement, Allah will help his slave as long as he helps his brother. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned about Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, that this is one of the reasons that he would yas'a fi hawa'ij an-nas. Yani sa'yan shadidan, he will always go and try to do things good to help the people. He would take this as something serious. Why? Because he knew that Allah Ta'ala would aid him by aiding his brothers.
Allah.
So that's just what I wanted to end it with there. And then whatever you guys brothers
you should not have brought up this topic today, man. It should be in part 2.
We can do a part 2 though. We can do a part 2.
I mean, you're on that.
Well, I'm gonna get out of the way by saying, may Allah aid us in this affair. Because,
I love it. I mean,
right now, the state of the ummah, is these are very trying times. And there's so many concessions that Allah has given us, whether it's through knowledge, whether it's through brotherhood. There's so many concessions that we have.
Yeah.
And I think that, the more we bring light to those concessions and multiply the options that the general Muslim have, because it seems like, a lot of doors is being closed on them.
No.
Yeah.
So this is what's, kind of setting back the ummah, that we're not delving into these type of discussions about remedy.
And I think this is one of the reasons that we started the podcast, which is that we deal with these issues that might be taboo, that might not be discussed, might not be talking about. And I think that's what you're trying to do also with your youth program.
Absolutely.
You're trying to get them and deal with them things which they're not talking to with their families, or they're not being heard, etc. So I mean, we just got to do one thing at a time.
Just in closing, just to get, because I kind of missed a mark or opportunity to explain the course that I'm taking with, the things that I'm doing.
No, there's another opportunity. Part 2, inshallah.
Yeah.
You have to come back, akhi.
But in short,
like, for the Loon to Amir boot camp, I found this as a means of kind of simulating adversity,
Mm-hmm.
the workout.
Yes.
Because I've learned that people tend to open up when they go through a form of adversity together.
Allah.
So you
100%.
simulate adversity through a very strenuous workout.
100%.
That proven to be a means of the
Connection.
youth coming together,
Allah.
starting to open up,
Yeah.
talk about things, because
Yeah.
it's like, man, man, brother, man,
Yeah.
and then it
Allah.
just starts from there. Also with paid meals, which is, a mobile application that I'm in the process of building, which will impact food insecurity. I've also taken the opportunity to take the youth out to aid me and assist me in feeding people in need.
Allah.
Allah.
Because now what happens is when you're contemplating on spending $600 on a pair of J's or something like that, or even if you acquire some of the things that you desire as a young kid, whatever's left over, you know what I'm saying? I believe that taking them out to actually show them that there's another option.
Yeah.
There's another opportunity to spend in Allah's way.
Mhm.
Even
Yeah.
after you suffice your own needs or your own desires,
Mhm.
that whatever remains that you have no need for,
Mhm.
there's someone that can actually use that.
Yeah.
And
Allah.
I think taking the youth out to actually implement this very praiseworthy deed of giving sadaqah
Allah.
is another way. And,
Allah.
just like I said, just the speaking engagements in itself is, addressing the youth as a peer.
Mhm.
Because I believe Allah favored me with that, being in that previous business. No matter how old I'm getting, how gray my hair is getting, it's like they still kind of view me as a peer, because it's like that business is still relevant, whether I'm relevant or, presently involved.
No.
So I just wanted to say that to say that, may Allah reward y'all for addressing these different concessions and opportunities to unite upon good.
No.
Mm.
And strengthen our brotherhood, because I think when we look at each other based on Western society,
Mhm.
we're kind of holding each other to the same barometer set in society.
Mhm.
And that's not the barometer that Allah set for us.
No.
Mm.
No.
Allah made it very easy and seamless for us,
Mhm.
to tread this path
Mhm.
and
Allah.
endure whatever comes along
Yeah.
the way of that path.
Mhm.
No.
And if we give emphasis to that course more often than less,
Mhm.
I believe that, and Allah knows best, I believe that, a lot of the Muslims will start to see that these simple, assertments or these simple, efforts
Mhm.
will only lead to something greater. So
Allah.
I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to
Amen.
continue to preserve.
We're all on a
Amen.
path
Amen.
towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Yeah.
and we are like people on a trip together,
Yeah. We
You
should be
know,
helping one another.
helping one another. Imagine you're on a trip together and then somebody slips.
Yeah.
And everyone keeps on walking. Nobody looks back. La,
Mm.
we have to hold each other. And together, inshallah, tread this path which leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to Jannah. May Allah make all of us
Allah.
brothers.
Ameen.
على
Allah. Ameen.
على الأرائك يتكئون on the day of judgment. Sit like this,
Ameen.
inshallah.
Allah.
In Jannah, inshallah. Facing each other.
Nah.
Talking about
Inshallah.
the dunya and what happened.
Inshallah. And with that being
Ameen.
said, again, we want to make sure we extend our appreciation for you coming to the
Allah
podcast today.
khair.
We appreciate, having you on a guest on the platform. It's an honor. And, we're looking forward to maybe future, different things with you, inshallah.
Man, I'm asking Allah, to literally, wallahi, I'm still like lost for words, because this is still surreal to me.
And you fresh off the plane, too.
Fresh off
Last
the plane.
what? He hasn't been here 9
Yeah.
hours, huh?
I haven't even been, but
Allah.
to come right into something, as beneficial as, trying to benefit the people.
Mm-hmm.
Told you're a regular listener of Tibyan, aren't you
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah,
You listen to it all the time, Sah, the podcast.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Look, I done got into the habit of listening to y'all now. So,
Jazakallah.
welcome to
Now
the
you're
club.
part of it.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
Jazakallah khair.
So yeah, inshallah, I plan, one day, inshallah, to make hijrah,
Mm.
from, the non-Muslim land.
Yeah, I'll make it easy for you.
I mean, and just to know that, if Allah favor me with this bounty, that I have a place. I have a place.
Jazakallah khair.
You know what I'm saying, to come and
We'll start looking for an apartment, bro.
yeah,
MashaAllah.
feel right at home. So
May Allah
inshallah.
make your affairs easy.
Yeah,
akhi.
ameen.
And with that, I
Ameen.
think it's a good place to stop. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad.
Barakallahu feekum.
Naam.